Hello, welcome back to another episode of My Voice Just Cracked a Bit. I obviously haven't got it completely back. Hello, welcome back to another episode of Xbox Infinite. I was just saying in the green room that I'm so glad to have my voice back. Obviously, it's not 100%. Everyone in the chat, you guys are absolutely amazing. I've been sort of watching. I've had a couple of technical issues in the background. Apparently, I've been botting, so hopefully that doesn't happen through the show. If it does, just let me know in the chat. We've got an awesome week this week. There's a lot been happening, a lot been Grey Monad. No, they've been dropped for a while. A lot's been happening this week, especially with the FTC and Microsoft going backwards and forwards. Before we jump in all the topics and what's been going on this week, Wandering Dutch, welcome to the show. It's great to have you on, man. How you doing? What have you been up to? What have you been playing? How's your week been?
Yeah, week's been good, apart from battling like massive hay fever all week because of the weather here. And I know complaining to Australians about warm weather is like complaining to an Eskimo in the Antarctic, but it is yeah. Other than that, really good. I've been playing a little bit of Diablo when I've been managing to get into it, but I had a little bit of a break after the streaming marathon that was the game shows. So yeah, happy to be on though. Really excited to be jumping into the chat with you chaps and ladies as well.
Absolutely, yeah. It's been a huge like month in gaming. So much has been going on, and we got like even another exclusive announcement as well this week, which is cool. And we're going to talk about. I've dropped that in the topics, but DoomCutie, welcome back. How you doing? Apparently, you've done a sort of a quick stream of the podcast, and did it go well? I haven't caught it through the week, but I'm hoping to catch it today after the show. How's it been? What's been going on for you?
Hey, no, been great. Thanks so much for being here again, and thank you for Wandering Dutch for being here with us. So great, and the chat active as always. Love your work, guys. Yeah, no, I've been having a really busy week actually. I've started writing for Well Played. They're a great team over there. They had me on their podcast again, which was awesome. They're all Australian. They don't do it live. They do it on Spotify, so you can check it out over there. Well Played. DLC podcast. And yeah, we were lucky enough to actually have Skill Up come in and talk a little bit about Final Fantasy with us, which you'll be very surprised.
Oh, you bet Skill Up.
Some of his takes.
You're killing me. Now you're killing me. Skill Up is on there. I ran into Skill Up at FanFest, and I think I scared the man because I picked him up off the ground.
Yeah, he talked about you.
And I bear hugged shit out of him. It was great to meet him, but
yeah, you picked him up. I think he said
rubbing your beard on him. I can imagine that would probably make him feel away. You know.
Yeah, I think he liked it.
But yeah, the games I've been playing, I've been jumping into Diablo. I'm finally 50. I finally finished the campaign for the second time because I finished it when it was in the review period. So yeah, I did. I'm a little bit Diabloed out, to be honest. But still, you know, there's a lot to do. Obviously, beyond 50, that's where the game really begins. So yeah, just taking it easy and not trying to wear myself out too much. I jumped into Forza last night. I've also been keeping up with my World of Warcraft guild, and yeah, been working on my podcast, and yeah, just living my best gaming life. What can I say? We're eating out here, guys. It's a buffet. Let's go. Let's talk games.
You know, if this ABK deal goes through, I may actually stop giving a shit about World of Warcraft, because if they bring it to Xbox, then of course it'll be good. But at the moment, not good. Umbra, how you doing? How's your week been? What have you been up to? What have you been playing?
Oh man, actually haven't been playing a lot, but what I have been playing is Diablo when I get a chance to. Yeah, some Diablo, as others might say. But yeah, man, couldn't unfortunately couldn't do the fix this week. I wasn't feeling up to it this week. I'm actually not feeling that great today still, but I don't know. I think I've just been like exhausted, man, honestly. So I just kind of haven't been in the mood for any of that. But you know, I am excited to be here with you all always. So you know, and having Dutch here with us, so it should be a great episode.
Absolutely, man. Well, thanks for coming along, even though you're not feeling that the greatest. I didn't know that. I've sort of been in my had my head in the sand for the entire week, as Pete knows. I don't think Pete's even seen me online, which is pretty rare. Yeah, I've been sort of flat out at work. But Pete, how you doing? What have you been up to? How's your week been? What have you been playing?
Back, massive week. I know we don't like talking about it. We always like leaving it to the more, you know, the better podcast out there. But massive news in the ABK deal this week. That injunction by the FTC could really determine whether or not the deal goes through. I honestly don't see Microsoft pursuing it if this block goes through, because it'll just get held up in court forever. So huge week for Microsoft, and it really determined the future of this deal going forward. So we're going to get into that a little bit later on the show. Welcome, Dutch. Umbra, you should tell the truth. You didn't do the fix because you were busy
That
playing
is not
Diablo
true.
with me, bro.
That is not true. I would never abscond my responsibility that way.
Well, if you don't run your gaming
Welcome everyone in
podcast,
the chat.
if you don't run your gaming podcast because you're gaming, I suppose that's kind of all right. There's nothing wrong with that. My week, man. I'd say a lot of people haven't been talking about this, or maybe don't know, but Aliens Dark Descent released, and I did play a little bit of it. I'm kind of liking it. It's a little bit early for me to sort of make a judgment, but I do like it. I liked it enough to sit back and watch Aliens 2 through the week. Love that movie. So good. Especially the end bit where she's like, "Get away from her, you bitch." But yeah, I haven't really had a chance to game heaps, and I'm a little bit off Diablo. Like, I played the story, finished it off, and then I just sort of felt like it was a rinse repeat sort of job, like a lot of these games are. So yeah, I've sort of dropped off Diablo a bit. Anyway, we'll jump into the topics of the week, and obviously the first one off the wrong is going to be the FTC versus Microsoft. And I had a bit of an interesting conversation online, which I sort of want to share. And it was based on a video that Destin did. And I just want to sort of clear this up and sort of clarify. And there's a lot sort of going on within this whole FTC versus Microsoft thing. But one thing that I've noticed a lot of the community are doing is and Destin as well. Shout out to Destin. I'm not going to call him a coward for not coming on the show, because that would be wrong, Destin. But what I will say is he tends to bring up, and a lot of people do this, he tends to bring up the fact that an American company, regulatory body is seemingly defending a Japanese company. Whilst the regulators should never defend a company, and that's not their purpose, what doesn't matter or isn't relevant is the locale that they're from. So there's a lot of people, really focusing in on the fact that, oh, this is an American regulator. It doesn't matter if it's an American regulator, if it's an Australian regulator, if it's the CMA. It shouldn't matter the locale of the company. That really doesn't come into play. So the regulators are not there to defend their country's companies. What they are there to do is ensure that their country's consumers are looked after. So it shouldn't matter whether it's a Japanese company. If it's providing a service to their consumers in their country, that's really all that should matter. And as long as their consumers are getting a good deal out of that, that's all that should matter. That said, I did get called a pony, which is hilarious, because I disagree with that specific point. So I did just want to be clear again. I think everyone here knows that I completely disagree with the FTC's position. And what seems to be going on, and just I haven't had a chance to actually listen. Unfortunately, it's usually while I'm asleep that court case is running. But from what I'm picking up, it's the FTC seemingly is defending or coming to the side of Sony, which is a market leader, which is just completely, it's not what they're supposed to do. They're supposed to be on a consumer's side. And just their whole argument seems to be about PlayStation. Really interesting. There's a lot sort of there to unpack, and I want to kick it to Wandering Dutch and just get his view on what he's sort of seen this week, and what do you think of the FTC's argument? I found it, the exclusivity argument. Is Microsoft going to make things exclusive? Are they going to have little special packs on COD? All of these things that we've seen Sony do over the years, and what's brought them the market leadership. It seems to be a really invalid argument. Dutch, and I know that something popped up at the end of the FTC's defending. Oh, you're losing me a little bit. I know that something popped up at the end of the FTC's argument, and the judge sort of the judge.
Well, let me take over as the natural leader I am from the fix, as Risk is having issues. First order of business is removing Cutie as a member. because she didn't add me as a mod yet. Second, he's back. Okay,
Dutch.
Cutie, I didn't mean
Dutch,
that.
I wanted to kick it to Dutch and just get his view on what he's seen sort of going through the FTC. How do you feel about? I don't think the audience would be losing me. I think you guys might be losing me in Discord, unfortunately, which I'm going to go punch my computer and I'll be right back. But Dutch, yeah, so I was just talking about how the FTC is seemingly defending PlayStation. Their argument seems to be from a PlayStation-centric side and point of view, which is really odd. Yeah, what are your thoughts on their litigation so far?
Oh God, it's both nonsensical, but it's also really baffling for what is meant to be a governing body to have not done any. It's not even just a case of just done little due diligence, but any due diligence on the market as a whole or in general about anything ever. It's like the level of incompetence is like mind blowing, like absolutely mind blowing. They're just like, wouldn't you say that like making Indiana Jones? Are you making that exclusive? And Phil Spencer was like, well, of course, but one of Sony's largest IPs is Spider-Man. Not going anywhere. And then it was really weird, closed-lined questioning. And being a salesman, the one thing you never do is always ask a closed question where it's just a yes or no answer, because it doesn't get any real answer out of it. And it's just like, well, are you going to make it exclusive? He's like, no. Okay. So that's the end of that. Okay, so you can't really. And then they just kept asking the similar things, but about different games, and to the point where the judge ended up just going, right, I'm sick of this, and I'm cutting it short. Like, you're just asking the same closed questions, but you're just changing the game, like every time. And eventually, it was like, really, you're gonna put Call of Duty on cloud? And it was just like, yeah, I'm fed up with this line of questioning. It's ended. It's not even just defending Sony. It's the fact that they just have zero knowledge about anything that they're going into court for. I don't understand what position they're even attempting to come from here.
I think they were just trying to like help them slip up with, just very, very weird lines of questioning. Hoping that they would, start rambling.
It was more there was even one set of questions where they were asking, and 3-bit was capturing it brilliant, but they were asking them about kind of, okay, so you're not doing well, like you're third place. That's not very good, is it? It was like, well, yeah, we are third place. It's like, so your business is. It's like, what?
Yeah.
So the business isn't doing well. It's not doing well. It's like, I don't get what you're trying to ask here. It just was nonsensical. And I think the judge was even getting just a bit confused as well. I think most people in the courtroom, to a lot of these questions, didn't understand what the hell was going on.
I agree. The judge just seemed fed up.
Yeah, all the way through. And it was just comment after comment that they were making, and all the lines of questioning was just either nonsensical or just yes or no answers. To the point where you couldn't lead someone into having an in-depth discussion about whether or not something would be in certain circumstances. So if in X circumstance, what would happen here? And then ask them an open question so that they would have to elaborate.
And that's what lawyers typically do. They will typically not ask yes or no questions. They will ask opening questions in order to get, people to slip up. And I just don't think they did a very good job at all. In terms of the judge, I thought the judge handled the case excellently. I thought she controlled the courtroom. She put a stop to nonsense when she needed, when they needed to. And yeah, I just think they did a really good job.
Yeah, well, there was some pretty interesting things that sort of popped up through it. I've sort of dropped them in the topics. And one of them that I found a little bit odd, and hopefully I'm not botting to you guys, was Sony said it would hold PS6 information. And also something else that popped up is that Sony has been withholding their GDKs from Microsoft. So when it comes to Microsoft putting their first-party games onto a PlayStation platform, they're at a disadvantage. And so it's sort of a self-perpetuating issue or concern. And I would absolutely be concerned if I was Jim Ryan that COD won't run as well on the PlayStation as it does on the Xbox if they can't even provide the GDKs to the developers
Riskit, it wasn't even just that. They asked him about Minecraft, and they were like, "Why isn't Minecraft the PlayStation 5 version?" He was like, "Because you didn't give us a PlayStation 5 dev kit."
Yeah.
We're like,
And then one of the
okay.
one of the lawyers was like, "Well, you've had plenty of time," and it's like, these guys don't know how this shit works. I mean, clearly, I mean, you've had plenty of time. You need to know. You need to understand the system. You need to be able to. You need to GDK to understand what's going on with your system, so you can put it on the PlayStation 5. It's
exactly. But even the judge recognized that. The judge went, "Well, would you do it if given the tools and the time?" They were like, "Yeah, it was okay." So that's that relevant then.
Yeah, it doesn't look good for the FTC. But
Oh.
my only concern, Umbra, and I do want to ask, sort of get your view. My concern about this is a lot of people, I don't think, quite understand that if this injunction is upheld, then it effectively will kill the deal. Microsoft has already said as much. But in this argument, they don't have to really argue, which is, I find it odd that they are doing this. They don't have to argue the merits of the case per se. What they have to do is create enough doubt that the judge can go, okay, there might be something here to argue, and so we need to hold this injunction so we can get to the bottom of this. They're not doing a great job so far, but it is a concern that that this could kill the deal. Although listening to hearing, I didn't get a chance to listen to it, but reading a lot of the actual case that's been going on, it doesn't really seem like a massive concern. Umbra, do you think this is something that might kill the deal? What do you think the chances are of this deal surviving?
I mean, if I had to give a percentage, I'm going to be like, man, I'm thinking it's more 80-20 right now, which is coincidental for the split of ABK as they threatened Microsoft with. But man, I hear the FTC guy who by the way I thought was kind of rude toward Phil. He was trying to do that little whole nasty lawyer thing. I don't know if anybody else picked that up. He was like, yeah, the little page on such and such. He's like real extra when he didn't have to be. But no, man, you hear them, and the more you hear, the more it sounds like they're incredibly clueless. And a lot of the things he asked Phil, he was trying so hard for a gotcha moment. The lawyer, the FTC lawyer, it really resonated to me and so many other people in the chats I've read. That the guy was out there fishing, and he was trying to catch Phil in contradictions and things of that nature. And Phil, wasn't going for it really. Phil is as usual, was cool as a cucumber. But we had ACG who wrote something I want to share with you all. He said we had hired a crack team to translate today's FTC Xbox Activision courtroom questioning. The translation is as follows: FTC, der. Xbox, what? FTC, der. Xbox, yes. FTC, exactly. And that's more or less what I've been hearing. And it's after a minute, you kind of check out. And that's what it was for me. I'm not sure about everybody else, but as I'm listening to it, at a point, I just started, let me just look at what Florian is typing on Twitter after a minute, because after so long, it just got tiresome, honestly. And I listened for most of it, honestly. I felt like I was a lawyer for a second. But yeah, I think that most people, except maybe, I don't know, Derek Strickland on Twitter, apparently thinks that the FTC is losing here. Derek Strickland is the only one who seems to think the FTC has been shining these past 2 days. So it's very interesting. And I know next week, I believe next week we have the heavier hitters in Satya, and you got Kodak jumping in. So it's going to be interesting all the way through. But if I did have to give a percentage of which way I think it's going, absolutely, I think Microsoft is coming out smelling like a box of roses right now. It just looks like everything's going in their favor. And even a judge cut off the FTC guy as he tried to, for whatever God knows, whatever reason, parlay Microsoft getting ABK games into Sony's cloud service. I'm like, what is this that I'm listening to? Did you all catch that part?
No, yeah, I didn't catch that bit, Dutch. Sorry, man.
Yeah, he tried to parlay them into getting their games put into Sony's service. And I'm like, wait a minute, are you the FTC? Are you Sony's lawyer? As I heard it, I was like, wow, that really really
Yeah,
painted a
that's
real
what he,
negative
like, the
picture.
last section was him just like rattling off games and whether or not they're going to be in the server on PlayStation. It was just
Yeah.
more like a shopping list. It was
Exactly.
like, you know,
And the stupid thing about it, Dutch, is he said that, and Phil had already previously told him, well, we don't know. It's a game, basically a game by game basis. We have to figure out what we want to put where. And some games won't go there, basically, more or less saying some games won't go there, some games will. He made it very clear. The guy was just trying so hard to go around with it. Wilfrey Rosario says, "Stadia's back, baby." Yeah, right.
I sort of don't understand the it is really confusing, right? So, and I've sort of been trying to make sense of it after the fact because I don't get to listen to it. But from what I've been reading, and I've read some of the transcripts as well. But what I've been reading is it seems like they're trying to establish two things. It seems like they're trying to establish that PlayStation and Xbox are a market unto themselves, which I think is, from what you were saying, Dutch, I didn't get a chance to read that has been absolutely destroyed by Google when they said no, Stadia is absolutely part of the market, which actually hurts the CMA. I'm sure the CMA just like slapped themselves in the forehead when they heard that. They're like, oh. And then
absolutely.
The other thing is it, and I don't know if they're realizing that they're doing this. It seems like they're trying to establish the fact that Microsoft using their, say, ABK and sort of using Bethesda as the test case, saying that their exclusivity damages the market. Which, I mean, we've back and forth on this. I think everyone, and Dutch, I've heard you on Primetime Gaming, on yours, on Midweek Mix-Up, and on, I think, Box's World of Gaming, which is really late for me, which I catch after the fact. But I think we've all gone back and forth on this, is you're basically arguing that what Sony does and has been doing is anti-competitive. And so if that's the case, why are we holding Microsoft up to a standard that we're not holding Sony up to? And why are we protecting the market leader? This is just the strangest argument.
The one good thing I did like Riskit was the judge was asking the questions that they're asking. So the judge was saying, okay, so is exclusivity common in console gaming? And Phil Spencer was like, yes, it's a common practice across the board. So,
they put a pie chart out right at the start. That pie chart basically just it's the case over then and there. It was in black and white. It was they put a massive pie chart out, and it clearly shows Xbox in third place. I just don't understand why they're even in court, how they got to this point, and I think the judge is calling them out for a lot of their nonsense. And the FTC's case has been even shut down by the CMA, which we know are against the deal as well. So I really don't think they've got a leg to stand on. But my main point of this whole court case is how often are these upheld? When they're trying to just put a block in case so the merger doesn't go through until it can be heard in court. And I have tried to find any information about that, and I'd love the chat to help out if they could, if anybody knows, or if any of you guys know. So how often are these blockages actually upheld by the court so they can have their day in court? Because obviously Microsoft heavily doesn't want that, and I think you were right, Riskit, at the start when you suggested that if this doesn't go through and if this block actually is upheld, then I think there's a big chance that Microsoft will just pull out of the deal. So that breakup clause will have already passed by the time that court case is held, I think, in August. So they're going to have to renegotiate with Activision. And I just don't know, with everything the FTC is doing, I can see them blocking this case for literal years.
Yeah.
With regard to what the FTC does, and it is common practice, at least under their tenure anyway, the Lena Khan's tenure, is to delay as much as possible, even if they know they don't have a case, they delay it as much as possible to the point where the purchasing parties get fed up and they pull out of their own regard because they're sick of waiting. They don't have the money, the financial money, to continue to drag this out in legal terms. So they just pull out the deal entirely.
That's a great point. And Microsoft's a different entity.
Exactly. Microsoft have the money to take them through legal. Yeah.
Will they? Will they want to? I mean, and I just don't know the answer to that, Dutch.
The
I really
FTC
don't.
the problem is the FTC do not have expendable funds to do that. They don't. They all unlimited. They've tried to go to, as we know, they've tried to go to Congress and get additional funds to continue their fight, which is falling on deaf ears, and it's only going to get them so far. So going down the federal route isn't what really the FTC want, because they keep trying to nudge them to resolve stuff in August at
For
their own interest.
every case that the FTC has heard in terms of vertical acquisitions, they've lost. So every time they've tried to block a deal which they consider to be a vertical acquisition, they've lost under the tenureship of Lena Khan. She is, I think,
Well, that's the thing
heavily
is
politicized.
that's sort of the point, Pete, is that the FTC doesn't traditionally go after vertical mergers. They usually see a vertical merger, pass a vertical merger, and move on. So it's only under Lena Khan's tenure that we have seen them going after these vertical mergers, which is really odd. But the when you're arguing a case and you want to do it on the merits of the case, these arguments have literally no merit other than to call regulators to action to start going after the industry practices that we've seen for years, under PlayStation. Microsoft has done it as well with exclusivity. If that's something that they deem as anti-competitive, then we're going to see a massive shakeup of the gaming market. But it's again
Not just the gaming market, though, Riskit. You've got to
Exactly.
think about what exclusivity means, and every possible service in the world that you ever have has some form of what they call as a USP, which is a unique selling point, which means it's some form of exclusivity for some kind of thing to offer a customer that is different from a competitor. You have to have a form of exclusivity to differentiate yourself from the competitor. Otherwise, what's the point? There is no competition.
exactly.
The basis of capitalism. I mean, you have something that someone else doesn't have, so people buy off you, and it doesn't matter what that is. It's insanity.
And I think we're sort of seeing it's again, content is king. We've sort of have these discussions. But I mean, yeah, you're exactly right. I mean, Disney, massive amount of exclusivity with Disney. I think that's probably the biggest example of a streaming service having a ridiculous amount of exclusivity. Netflix, Amazon Prime. I mean, there is crossover, but there is something that you can get on Netflix you can't get anywhere else. I feel
like the moment they allowed, speaking of that, Riz, sorry to cut you off, but
you're good.
The moment they allowed Disney to acquire Fox and everything like that, I think everything else went out the window for me. Because that would, if you wanted to talk about monopoly, that would be the closest, if anything, I would have said that was a monopoly would have been that. But you're right. This whole, typically they would stop horizontal mergers, like you said. Now they're trying to switch it to vertical under Lena Khan. And we both know, we've all said it here several times before, it's not so much even about them trying to curtail stopping anything that's anti-competitive. But I think they saw Microsoft, they saw this big, nearly $3 trillion worth company acquiring something that, one of the biggest purchases ever of all time, certainly of Microsoft's, and they said, hey, let's go and try to stop that. That'll, that's a nice little target right there. It's an easy target, because who better than to try to stop one of the biggest, the second biggest company in the world?
Biggest, baddest Microsoft.
Yeah, absolutely. That would only look good for them. I think it's more politics than it is anything else.
Yeah, and
but it's Microsoft's gaming division, and I mean, I think that really is different to Microsoft. Look, maybe if when you're writing articles about it, if you put the name Microsoft out there, it looks good. But this Lena Khan chick, I think that she is heavily influenced politically.
Cutie, I just wanted to ask and sort of get your sort of side and how you think about exclusivity. Do you think exclusivity harms competition from your sort of a standpoint? And just before you do, I'll quickly preface this with what I personally believe, that exclusivity is not good for the consumer. And so I think the regulatory bodies would have a case to go up against exclusivity across all streaming platforms, across all platforms. I definitely think it forces people into an ecosystem they may not particularly want to be in. I think that this is true. This is 110% true. But however, for the companies themselves to exist and for them to have a reason for you to come over there, for the companies, exclusivity is almost a necessity. And so it's a bit of an interesting one, whereas I do think it's not consumer friendly. I don't think it completely harms a consumer, but I also do think it's a necessity that we must have. And it's something that PlayStation's leaned heavily on. So really weird arguments that I've seen coming out of the FTC every morning when I wake up and read through the threads. Cutie, do you think that exclusivity is something that should be abandoned, that the regulators should go after?
Look, I think we're moving into a time where people like options, and options are more prevalent than ever. And I think it's definitely okay if people want to play certain games on different platforms simply because they enjoy that platform. I've said this many times. I enjoy the Xbox controller out of all controllers because of the way the buttons are set out. The way that controller is ergonomically designed is fantastic for me. So whenever I can use an Xbox controller, I will. Simply for my own comfort. Now, that sometimes means that I can't spend hours sinking into games that are exclusively on PlayStation. And that's simply because of my own gaming style. And unfortunately, that means that sometimes I do miss out on playing some games because I can't put the same amount of time into them because I get aches in my fingers.
Yeah.
And that's just on a personal level, but I think exclusivity. People argue that it can promote healthy competition by encouraging platform holders to invest and differentiate their platforms and all kinds of things. And I think that the more that people realize that differentiation, everyone wins, the sooner people will be stop wasting their money on stupid lawyers fighting stupid cases. Because at the end of the day, that's all they're doing. And it's a complete waste of time. They're going to lose.
Well, that is a good point. If you're American, this is costing the FTC millions of dollars to litigate this case, and has from day dot.
Is costing the American taxpayer. But yeah, in terms of exclusivity, Xbox wouldn't exist if it wasn't for Halo. People bought Xboxes because they wanted to try Halo. It's the only place they could play it. It's the same reason that Spider-Man is exclusive on PlayStation. That massive IP sells consoles, and you can name down the exclusives. But who really stood out to me as what I thought was just brilliant? Pete Hines. Yeah, and the way he talked about exclusivities, I really felt that he really put the consumer first. He was really hesitant on their games, Bethesda games particularly being exclusive. And yes, his narrative did shift to the when he was talking about how he's able to make a better game because they're only focusing on one console. But I just really liked his stance at the start where, he cared that much about the consumer and he wanted them to be able to play their games wherever that may be.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's interesting. I thought Pete sounded almost insubordinated. Like he almost sounded like he was doing insubordination. The last time we heard Pete Hines when he was talking, and it's no coincidence that his name happens to be Pete. See, for the people who will hoove it up on you, their names tend to be Pete, audience. Just want to throw that out there. But no, seriously, Pete, the last time we heard from him, he was saying he introduced thoughts that nobody had the reason to even assume. Well, we were making Starfield for PlayStation 2. It's like, why did you say this? Why did you volunteer this information? It's much like that other guy recently, Risk. Remember that guy who just volunteered information? It's like, why? Who was that guy from, I think it was from Arcane. Yeah, it was Arcane. Yeah. And he just volunteered information. Pete Hines did the same. Yeah. And here in this case here, I thought, like, why are you saying some of these things? Mm-hmm. I thought he was, I hear you on that, Pete. I do agree that I like his everybody, inclusive thought. But now you know the situation. You know where you're at. You know why you were picked up. This whole thought of you having this everybody, I want everybody to play it. That's nice. But that's not the reality of what I thought it was a little insubordinating. How do I put this in a proper way? I thought what he was saying was kind of close to insubordination.
Counterproductive?
Honestly. It was counterproductive to Microsoft for certain, I thought, personally.
Well,
if I would have heard that, I'd have been like, let me pull this guy aside right after his testimony.
I definitely didn't. Hang on, Pete, 2 seconds. I'm just going to jump in. I definitely didn't think it was insubordination at all. I think he made a really good point, actually against my argument that I believe that exclusivity is not good for consumers. Because the one argument that you can bring to the fore is that when you develop for one system, that game can be better. And that, I think, was his overarching point that he made. He did make another point, which we definitely need to jump into. And Pete, I'll just jump to you in a minute. But his overarching point was like, when we develop for one system, it's common sense that there's a lot less work. You can put a full team on that one system, and you get a better product. I think that's sort of where he was going. He is a really nice dude. Like I did speak to Pete real briefly, and I might be colored by actually meeting these people and then going, he's all right, But like I did meet him. Yeah. He is a really nice, genuine dude.
I believe that. I believe that he is.
So I
agree with Pete on his thought process. I do get it. Don't get me wrong. I'm just saying, is when you're brought into a company like this, and then you say some of that in a court case that can decide if they can bring in this $70 billion acquisition, that was counterproductive. And because it wasn't just him saying that, he said that Bethesda wasn't alerted to Microsoft bringing in Call of Duty the way they were and allowing that to still be on PlayStation versus them allowing like Elder Scrolls, for instance. It's like, so what? You're not board members. You are owned by them. Why are you even mentioning this? Like, why are you saying this part as if you needed to be included in this thought? I just thought it just sounded to me as if he was saying basically, well, they're allowed to put their games there. Why can't we? That's why I thought it was counterproductive personally.
Yeah, I didn't get that. Pete, you were going to jump in?
No, I was going to say exactly what you said. He closed his argument off by saying that by only developing for one console now, they can make a better game. And he suggested that Starfield wouldn't have been coming out this September unless it was only on one console. It's probably going to come out better because of it as well. So I get what you're saying, Umbra. I think he did offer up too much information at certain points, information that he didn't need to, to say. He could have kept his mouth shut, but I think the genuine nature of the man really shone, and his love of gaming and the ability of all players to play, every game that they make was, I don't know, it was refreshing.
Yeah, I do agree with that point. I see both ways of it. I definitely agree with you there. I definitely hear you on that. So I'm not arguing that. I agree that I think even with you, Risk, I know that you probably are a bit more biased because you have met him. And, so you understand them, you've met them and you got a good, read on them. So that I'm not arguing at all. I just thought that what he was saying, it was like, that was very counter to what they're trying to push here. I thought it was more arguing in favor of the FTC versus Microsoft in that case. That's all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's the thing, right? And I do want to move on to the next topic, but you sort of raised another really good point. That's the thing. He definitely sort of did lend some credence to what the FTC is trying to argue, but I don't think that what the FTC is trying to argue actually helps their position in any way, shape, or form. Because what they're trying to argue is that, like, you're going to have exclusivity, right? And Microsoft's like, yes. And they're like, but everyone's got exclusivity. And Microsoft's like, yes. And it's like, see? That's just a weird, it's a really weird.
Gotcha.
It's a weird argument. So in these cases, you normally need to establish a market and the existence of the harm that can happen within the market, but they're not doing a great job of that. Even if they established that PlayStation and Microsoft, with the exclusion of PC, and Nintendo are the only ones that exist in this market, Microsoft is in a worse position when you do that. And so
I was gonna say
it's
exactly Riskit. Yeah.
It's a weird argument.
If Microsoft were the leader, then fine. It makes sense. But was the stat like that? I go back to that pie chart. It shouldn't even be in court if you just looked at that pie chart. I mean, it's just nonsensical to me.
Yeah, it's a very weird argument. I do want to move on from it. I'm sort of loving the ridiculousness of it. And the more I read and digest about it, I wish I could actually be awake to listen to the case, because I think you get
one more little snippet. They asked him about, do you know what console war is? He said, yes, I know what the console war is. And he said, can you describe what the console war is? He says, the console wars are a social construct.
And that was Phil Spencer.
Phil, yeah. That should be on a t-shirt, right? Yeah.
I am definitely going to make that. I'm going to make that t-shirt. I'm doing it after the
Sarah
show.
Bond was amazing, and
Oh,
she's
man.
just a powerhouse.
Yeah.
And she's so
Mhm.
just the way she carries herself and the way she speaks just oozes confidence. And she was so clear in the points she wanted to get through, and just amazing. I think Matt Booty let himself down a little bit and got a little bit, caught up in it all, but he came back strong. I think that email suggesting that none of the games were going to be on what's it called, video,
Nvidia.
Video.
yeah, G4, yeah. And then the reason is because they didn't actually ask Bethesda's permission for them to be
but-
on there. So,
But hey, listen, this is the thing that we Xbox fans have been asking for such a long time. A more aggressive Microsoft who says, fuck that, we're not putting our shit over there. And it's good to, and I think there's been a lot of Twitter firing of Phil Spencer. There's been a lot of Twitter questioning of Matt Booty and questioning of these podcasts. I don't think I'll ever question Matt again. Like, that man is an absolute shark. I love it. I think they need him in there. And it's good to see that he's got teeth and he will bear them when he needs to. And I think he probably, if he's dealing with situations in that way, I think he deals with studios, in I wouldn't say aggressive, but in a very stern way. And I think that's something that we've all been questioning. Can't really completely put it to bed. But what we can say is that at least there's someone who's really strong behind the scenes. And I agree with what you're saying about Sarah Bond. I didn't see her argument. I did see the transcript of it. She's very pointed, and I like that. Any stupid question was a yes or a no. And that was great to see. Look, we do want to move on to the next, which is related.
hold on. Jack's just put a super chat out there. Is that actually legitimate?
No, I don't think so.
No, I think that's just what he thinks.
Yeah, I don't think that's that would be cool if it was. Yeah, Jack said
That would be
case
cool.
dismissed with prejudice and a fine to the FTC. And probably it should be a fine to the FCC, but you shouldn't be hoping for that because they've already spent enough money as it is on the case, and it's really costing you as an American taxpayer, if you are indeed in America. We'll jump on to the next topic. Before I do, guys, in the chat, please hit the like button if you're a regular. I know most of you already do. If you're new here, hit the subscribe button. We go live 8 p.m. every Friday, 8 p.m. EST, every Friday, and just talk about what's going on within the gaming sphere. Something that did sort of pop up from Pete Hines' conversation, so I did want to lead out from that. We got a confirmation. This was never in doubt for me, and I couldn't understand why it would be. A lot of people say because Disney was involved, but then you can point to Spider-Man. Indiana Jones has been confirmed as an exclusive. And there's something that Pete Hines was talking about, within how when you're developing for a console, he mentioned Starfield. Starfield wouldn't be coming out in the time frame that it is coming out, and he did mention that Indiana Jones has a very strict time frame, and to meet that time frame, it was better for Xbox, for Bethesda, to just develop for the one console. I don't think that's entirely true. I think sort of Phil Spencer sort of added to that later on, where it's like they wanted to have a big IP that was exclusive to their console. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. It's good to hear. Wondering, Dutch, were you at all ever concerned that Indiana Jones, it's been a lot of talk through the last 2 years about whether Indiana Jones is going to be exclusive. Now that we finally got the confirmation, were you concerned, that Indiana Jones wasn't going to be an exclusive?
No. I think Elder Scrolls 6 will be exclusive as well. I just don't think people are ready to hear that yet. No, I think it's absolutely going to be exclusivity, and the point that you needed to make there was literally about Sony and Spider-Man. That's all he had to say, and he did come up to that, as you mentioned there. He did get to that. He said, "Listen, Sony have Spider-Man, so what's wrong with us putting Indy as an exclusive for us?" And there was no comeback to that because they do have Spider-Man, and that is an exclusive, and that is Disney property. So yeah, there was literally zero concern. My only thing is it isn't on Microsoft's part, as much as us old people love and know Indy, it isn't a like for like transaction really.
No.
Indy's really cool for us.
Yeah.
But for the younger generation who have absolutely zero idea who Indy is, never grew up on him, it's more of a nostalgic thing for us. But I'm looking forward to seeing what it is. Machine Games are going to do a great job, but was never in doubt about its exclusivity.
Yeah, look, I personally wasn't, but that's an interesting point that a lot of people keep bringing up is that Indiana Jones doesn't have the same impact as Spider-Man. I don't think that's an arguable point, but I think it has enough of an impact. I think the average age,
yeah, definitely.
yeah, average age of a gamer is like 35, 36. Bobby Hawk says, but if it's being made, no, I just saw something that he said just up there at the top. I just want to refer to that because that's an interesting misconception. It was something like
right under Pete's comment.
Microsoft will make more money if they made Elder Scrolls 6 multi-platform. Yeah, that's the thing, Bobby. He's probably right? It probably is. But Bobby, but Bobby, what exclusivity is, it's got nothing that argument of it'll make more money because PlayStation has more players. I'm not saying that you're stupid, but it's a stupid argument that gets brought up in the community because what exclusivity is there to do, and as we just spoke about in the last topic, it's there to sell consoles. It's there to bring those people to your platform, and Elder Scrolls 6 would do that. Those big games are there to be attractive. Content is king.
Another big leak that came out is most likely the new console is going to come out 2028. I do believe that's when Elder Scrolls is hoping to come out. I think that it will come out on both consoles. So at the end of the Series console generation and then the start of the new one. And it will be a console seller. No doubt about it.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that'll probably be the around the time we get those mid-gen refreshes, Pete, that you'll be giving up the news for. Just want to point that out. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Case was suggesting new consoles 2028, bro. So I don't know.
You've seen what's been happening with Starfield and everything that the kickoff around that. That is absolutely going to be a console seller. I've never seen controllers sell that quick. Like even limited editions, it's been ridiculous. I've never seen a timeline full of controllers like that.
Yeah,
or just our community Dutch that have bought those controllers and headsets is ridiculous, mate. It's blown up.
Yeah, absolutely.
I've literally never seen it, and I've seen so many different things. But this is the thing. Like exclusivity in some cases it isn't great for some games because being on multiplat. But when it's your own title, you own that. Being multiplat isn't always required to make money. If it's your own game, you can make that exclusive because there are other methods of generating money from that. You can generate subscription money from that. You can generate console money from that. You can generate the actual game sales from that, which make up the discrepancy that you would have from not being on other platforms. If, however, it is a multiplayer title, which is why Bungie want to remain multiplat, there is microtransactions involved in that. And the best way to make money is to be multiplat.
Yeah.
So there is a much bigger excuse for a multiplayer game to be multiplat than there is for a single player game to be multiplat.
Yeah, I
agree.
That's 100% true. Yeah. Remember?
And also too, third parties. That's another thing. So
definitely.
That mucks things up, right?
They don't have anything else to generate money from. They don't have a physical property like a console. They don't have a subscription service outside of Ubisoft and EA. They don't have a subscription service to peddle, so they don't have other things that they can make revenue from other than the game itself.
Yeah, exactly. And so the function of exclusivity is as we've seen, and you can do it over time. I don't think PlayStation has really lost much on a lot of their exclusives, except for the ones that are bad. But over time, you've seen PlayStation come to the fore. It was fairly even after the PlayStation 3, Xbox 360 sort of generation. It was fairly even. I think 3 ended up overtaking in the end with exclusives like The Last of Us that came out at the end of the generation. Now, there's one thing I sort of disagree with that Phil said on Kind of Funny, right? He's like, I don't disagree with what he said. I disagree with the sentiment. So he said, there's no world where we, Starfield's a massive success and people start selling their PlayStation 5s. No, definitely not. But there is a world where if you continue to put out fantastic exclusives that people start to gravitate towards your console. And that is something that he says, we're not in the business of wanting to do that. We don't want to, butcher the console players. It's already there. But I don't believe him in the slightest. I think Phil's a genuine guy. But I think there's definitely, you have to want to butcher and take away some of PlayStation's player base or bring them to your platform at the very least.
Yeah. I want to say something. I think that Phil doesn't really care about selling consoles. He cares about bringing people into the Game Pass ecosystem. And people who own PlayStations may own a PC. Well, apparently they have more money than us, really poor Xbox gamers out here. So I would like to assume that they all do. So I dare say that Phil doesn't care about selling Xboxes. He cares about bringing people onto Game Pass to play Starfield and to play Indiana Jones. It doesn't matter whether they're playing on an Xbox or a PC. And that is how you make money these days. It's not...
Sorry, yeah, keep going.
Yeah, it's not... So they don't make money from selling consoles. They make money from getting people on Game Pass and paying that monthly fee. And yeah, they're probably going to bring out limited edition controllers and things like that. That's wonderful, excellent, fantastic. I love that. We love to see it. But I can tell you right now, from a business point of view, he wants butts in seats in Game Pass. And having Ultimate Game Pass, the highest tier, to play on their already existing PC, it's a win for him.
Yeah, well, that's something that he sort of pointed out, that PC is the growth as well, Cutie. But there's also, again, there needs to be a reason. So the reason that you would bring people over from PlayStation, the reason that that PC players would start to gravitate towards, Game Pass and the Xbox ecosystem is because of the exclusives they have. If you don't have shit they want to play, they ain't coming. That's basically it.
Exactly.
Console market is very, very slow growing. In fact, it's pretty much stagnated. So the growth is going to be in PC and in mobile, which I think we've said it a million times on this show, that that's the main reason why Xbox is going after Activision Blizzard King. That King portion is just incredibly important to Microsoft, and it's going to be their entry and their foothold into that market.
But look, it's real. I was super stoked to hear that Indiana Jones, was going to be exclusive. I'm also the way that they're sort of speaking about it with their tight timelines. I think it's coming much sooner than we think it is. I think this one's a back end of 2025. So. I
agree.
Yeah, and
it wasn't meant to be exclusive, Risk. So after the acquisition went through, they renegotiated the deal with Disney and then turned it into an exclusive. It was actually meant to be coming out on PlayStation.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. But I think it was Disney who brought the what Pete Hines was saying is that Disney brought the question up, is like, okay, now that this is going on, what are your plans? And they had that discussion about what was actually best for the IP. And then I'm sure that Xbox sort of pitched that, hey, it's going to be best for the IP if we, are only developing for one console. We can hit this timeline. We can do it at quality. And I'm sure Disney was like, yeah, sure, jump on board.
I don't understand. I just don't understand why they're spending so much time in thinking about this when they should be like, where's Tomb Raider? What's happened to Tomb Raider? You know what I mean? Like I personally love that franchise, and that would actually bring me back to playing on on PlayStation, because
they're on separate company, but with Crystal
it's
Dynamics
Amazon. It's Amazon who own
Crystal
Dynamics.
IP now. Oh, did Amazon buy it? Yeah,
Amazon has the Tomb Raider license now.
Yeah, Amazon has the Tomb Raider.
They should be talking. They should be busy talking to Amazon about what are they doing with that. Their God of War franchise as well.
Crystal Dynamics is developing in conjunction with Amazon. I don't know if Amazon owns the IP.
Okay.
I'd have to look at that. There was something that went on between. Yeah.
Yeah. I thought maybe there was some.
Well, Amazon can make the TV series, so they must own the IP.
Yeah, they own the entirety of Lord of the Rings as well.
I think it's two different things. So they might have the license for the TV show, but not for the game. I don't think.
I'm pretty sure Embracer owns Tomb Raider. I
thought so.
Yeah, don't quote me on that. And I can't see Crystal Dynamics working on Tomb Raider anymore. I think that they've put Tomb Raider to the back burner. They have finished the trilogy.
No, they're making a Tomb Raider.
I think they're working on it now. Yeah.
Okay, that's awesome. I thought that they had put it to the back burner. I mean, I love the Tomb Raider trilogy. I thought it was an amazing game.
Everybody is saying it's Embracer in the comments, by the way.
Tomb Raider's further ahead than Perfect Dark.
Really? Okay, that's awesome.
Yeah, there you go.
That's also a little bit funny. Sorry to laugh out loud at that one. But Embracer has sold its Tomb Raider rights to Amazon for a cool $600 million. So yeah, they had sold it. I'm pretty sure we talked about it earlier in the year. But yeah, they did. They did sell the rights.
That's how they were trying to get money back.
Yeah, they're selling off the
rights.
Yeah, the IPs, and then we heard Embracer. We didn't talk about it because there was a lot happening that last week. That Embracer shut down a few studios, cancelled a lot of IPs, and that's always sort of sad. Not something I like to see from anyone in the industry.
I will say though that Crystal Dynamics actually made a tweet about that situation and pointed out that what they're working on hasn't been affected, fortunately, by that now.
Yeah, so they said nothing announced, which is good to hear. So they said nothing announced is going to be cancelled, and none of the studios working on those announced projects are going to be shuttered. But it's always you always have that little curiosity in the back of your mind, like what IPs did they shut down?
Yeah, exactly.
And
I will point out too, just the point of this whole case is it's annoying. Just I guess on a fan level, because you hear this talk about exclusives and it's like, wait a minute, you're talking about Indiana Jones, which doesn't have the viability it used to have, and I don't think that's an argument.
It does, bro. To me,
I love Indiana Jones. What's his name? Harrison Ford is my favorite actor of all time. I know it didn't sound like it when I said what's his name, but still, my whole point is, it's like now it's not at the level it used to be, right? And I don't think that's unfair to say. But
Dial of Destiny,
they talk about that. Well, they talk about it now, and they're like, "Oh well, are you gonna make that exclusive?" All while Sony has Spider-Man, Wolverine, and so many other exclusives that we don't get the chance to touch. It's like, wait a minute. And I know people will say, well, they're not arguing with Sony. That's the point, though. You're not. You're defending Sony while you're pressing the actual U.S. company. To me, it just reeks of, I don't know,
stupidity.
Craziness.
Well, do you know what it sounds like? It literally sounds like the FTC are PlayStation fanboys in there arguing for their favorite console. Well, I mean, I know that's not what's
exactly
happening.
What it feels like.
But that's what, what it sounds like.
If you look at it from a legal perspective, does games that have never come out, so these games, never come out, Indiana Jones, it's a brand new IP, does that hurt Microsoft's argument, and help Sony? Same with Starfield, in terms of, giving consumers less choice, which is what the FTC is there to, actually look after. I don't think it does. I think that if you take away an existing IP like Call of Duty, like Fallout 76, like Elder Scrolls Online, then that argument can be made. But if the games never come out on the console, then I don't think that argument holds up at all.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. You can't take something away that someone never had, right?
True.
Yeah, so it's an interesting argument, but then you can say that they would have got it without the acquisition of ABK or the acquisition of Bethesda. So there's some credence to that sort of argument. In that sense, that doesn't give the argument itself, the core of the argument, it's any credence when you think about what exclusivity is there to do, the history of exclusivity, and as Dutch pointed out earlier, how exclusivity is used not just across video gaming consoles and video gaming itself, but across streaming services and anything that provides content to its consumers. It's just one of those things that they use to bring people to a platform. It's a unique selling point. So
absolutely,
it's just a weird.
Just to add, sorry, go ahead, Risk. I'll say it after you finish.
It's a weird sort of argument that I don't know. Here's the thing: I don't know what they're trying to establish, and I don't think the judge, if she has any sense, and it sounded like Microsoft. They have sense, understood what the FTC lawyers were actually trying to do, in what direction they were trying to go. There needs to be a point that they're trying to drive home, and it just sounds like they're trying to drive home that there is exclusivity and Microsoft will have exclusive games. To what end, I fucking don't know. But sorry, Umbra, go ahead.
No, you're good. I mean, just to add, it's also to add it. What they're doing is they're trying to go for what's console harm, right? As we know, right? What they can classify as that, but they haven't proven anything. That's why he keeps going for, well, it'll be exclusive, right? Like, yeah, no, some of these things will be exclusive. He's already said it's on a game by game basis. They don't know what they're going to do with it. He asked him about Starfield. He doesn't know yet. I'm not Starfield, Elder Scrolls. And he says he's not sure yet exactly what their plans are.
Oh,
for
they're
that.
sure.
Yeah, sure. We know they're sure. That was funny to me too. I was like, you know damn well that game is not going to PlayStation. But the thing is like, they're trying to go for the console harm, but then you have the bombshell of Jim flying, dance pants, as everybody else says, Ryan. And his email came out where he's like, we're not worried about Call of Duty. We're not. Even if we don't get it, we're good. We got things in the works. Like he said that, yet was campaigning and flying over to Brussels and everything else to try to stop this, saying this would be the end of PlayStation, essentially, right?
Mhm.
So clearly he lied. To me, that was the biggest bombshell to me out of everything else shown. To me, that dismissed the entire argument that the FTC had trying to use Sony in a case, who is in first place and dominant, even by the lawyer today mentioning that Microsoft is competitive with them here in the US, but Sony has 54 to a 46% US lead. And that's just in America, and overseas and everywhere else it's way worse for Microsoft, as we all know. So the whole thought of you're doing this to protect competition with the market leader is asinine. It makes no sense whatsoever. Microsoft is already in the third position. That's why Phil keeps talking about, we lost the console war. That's why he's saying that. Like, we lost that. And I agree with him there. If we're going to argue that, they lost that. And that's why he made the mention of what he did when he had the interview, what you brought up a while ago.
Nintendo's not a console, Umbra. What are you talking about?
According to the FTC, right?
Wow.
Yeah, according to the FTC.
Wow.
He was trying so hard to dismiss Nintendo. If I was Nintendo, I'd send somebody after him.
I wonder where they got that notion from, though. I wonder where they got the notion from that Nintendo shouldn't count.
Yeah, I wonder.
It's weird that
a certain stable, I'm sure.
It's weird that that they've sort of taken these arguments on that don't have any credence and just so staunchly held onto them when the rest of the world has gone, yeah, Jim did say that, but it doesn't seem like it's right. And it does seem like they've just taken Jim's arguments, held onto them, and tried to develop a case around that. It just doesn't seem like it's working to me. I mean, maybe I'm just too much of a bot to see how hard the FTC is coming and that they're going to win this case. I don't think that's probably true. But look, I do want to move on because I don't want to sit on the FTC all day, which is, probably what we'll do. But before I do, I got a couple of questions, a couple of super chats. And before I do those, please hit the like button, share us out. Oh, Boss Mod Lethal Popper. I'll have to make you a mod, dude.
Got to mod him up. But first, after he says hello to everybody else here that he ignored. He said up Jedi.
That's right. Now see, he just said hello to the most important person. Mod him up.
Yeah, don't mod him. I changed my mind.
He's definitely a mod. Before I do that, please hit the like button if you are new here. Hit the subscribe button. Share us out. We go live 8 p.m. EST every Friday. I got Sappho. He said he's not console trolling. She. I don't know if it's a he or she. Sorry, Sappho. They said, is Final Fantasy 16 boss battles really causing PSs to overheat? No, I don't think that's the case.
Yes, it is. There's one particular boss fight that is actually causing PlayStations to overheat, and it's one specific fight within the beta, and it has caused consoles to overheat. So just be wary of that.
Is this an isolated case, or is it something?
No, it's not an isolated case. It's happened in more than one occasion. It's not very prevalent, but I heard it is actually happening.
I thought it was isolated, but okay, cool. But look, I do know that every boss battle, and this is why I didn't think it was true, because every boss battle apparently is dropping to about 720p, which is crazy. And I did make it. Look, if that's the only way you can lock the frame rate, but they didn't manage to lock the frame rate either. Bobby Hawk said, Biscuit, whenever I see you playing this robot shooter game, you always look lost. That's because I am, Bobby. Salblow 18 with a $2 super chat. It says FTC stands for fucking top comedy. Yeah, I like that. And Pyro Mad with the $2 super chat said FTC fumble trip crash. And it's a good idea, guys. Come up with some acronyms what you think the FTC should stand for based on the case. That'll be cool to do in the chat. I'd like to see there'll be some interesting ones come out of that. I will move on to the disappointing news of the week.
Okay, I'll just let everybody know that if you do want to play the Final Fantasy 16 remake, play it in frame rate mode, not graphics mode. It'll put less pressure on the actual console, the CPU, which is where the problem's coming from. And I've heard that there isn't a problem if you do play it in frame rate mode. So just for everyone.
Yeah, you don't want your liquid metal melting onto your CPU and just fizzing the PlayStation out. So definitely go with Pete's advice. But moving on. A little bit of spice in your day. Xbox is raising console prices and Game Pass prices and brr. This one really interesting. So from a standpoint of I still blame Sony. I mean, I know this sounds like I'm being an absolute bot right now. This would never have happened if the PS5s had not gone up in price. The only reason they are doing it is because they saw PlayStation got away with it, and then Xbox is going to do it. Xbox are a corporation. They're there to make money. They're not going to sit in a market where the only other existing console, apparently according to the FTC, the only other existing console went up in price by $50. That's in Australia. And they're not going to sit and leave their console down. What they did was give PlayStation a bit of room to cop the bad press. And now they're doing exactly the same thing. So do I think it's shit? Yeah. I think it's shit. I think it was a bad move. I don't think they should do it. But they're a business, and I sort of understand it from a business perspective. I would do the same thing. Because I would know I was going to get away with it. We're 3 years into a fucking console generation, and we're raising prices of a console when normally what happens is we get a slim version, a pro version, and some sort of cut down in price. To me, this is unacceptable. I'm not super mad at Microsoft about it. I'm pretty pissed off at PlayStation about it. And the Game Pass we'll get into, but I just want to do a round table and go through and get everyone's take on just the console now, because I think these are separate things. I think it's bad timing to do them both, but I think that there's something behind them doing both together. I'm going to do a bit of a round table, go through and get everyone's opinion. Wandering Dutch, just on the console, did you see it coming? What do you think about it? Do you think that this is something that is probably the fault of PlayStation? I might be putting words in your mouth. What are your thoughts on Xbox raising the prices of their consoles 3 years into a fucking generation? Ooh.
You know what? I think it's smart. 'Cause you know what? People want to play Starfield, and they're going to go out and potentially buy a console. So they don't normally make too much money from their consoles, but from a business point of view, it's like, hey, we've got more now. There's a really cool game coming out. Fucking why not?
From a ruthless business perspective, she is right. From a ruthless business perspective, from a consumer perspective, of course, it is shitty. But again, I've got to take my corporate hat off for a minute, because obviously I deal with businesses day in, day out, so I know in terms of the chain of command, everything, as we say, shit rolls downhill. So whatever affects the bottom line on the top guys, they'll pass that through to the next in the supply chain, and the next in supply chain, and the next in supply. And it goes all the way down to the bottom, and eventually it hits the consumer. No matter how much these corporate entities make, they will always pass on increases to the consumer. It was this case, and then unlike Sony, who hadn't mentioned it, and then it came out of the blue, Microsoft at least said, "Listen, we'll just do what we can until it is absolutely necessary to raise prices, and then we will raise them." They never said they weren't going to. They just said, "We'll hold off as long as we can, and then we'll raise them." Doesn't make it any better. I think for all of us, it doesn't affect us anyway, because we've all got series consoles now. So the console front, in the UK, it's not too much of a difference. It's 20-something pounds. On the Game Pass front, I was expecting a little bit more when it did increase, to be honest. I didn't expect only £2. I thought Ultimate might go up to £15 at a push, especially if they're starting to bring in content now. But $12.99, I think, is a marginal increase. Every service subscription has been doing it, so you kind of expect a little bit of an increase on that. Doesn't make it any better, but inflation's inflation. I can't justify it, and I also can't claim against it either, because I know what inflation's like. Everything we've ever buying at the moment across the board, no matter what it is going up. And of course, these corporate entities could shoulder them, but of course, then it would affect the bottom line, and ultimately, that's what they're bothered about. So
I understand that completely, Dutch, and I understand where you're coming from, and the cost of pressure of inflation is hurting companies, no doubt. I still think the chip shortage has a lot to do with that, and I think these chip companies
Well,
realize
that's
they
the
can
thing.
charge
Like I
more.
mentioned, it's the
Yeah.
supply chain thing. It's completely supply chain. So, obviously, when we're talking about production of consoles, they obviously have already. So, whoever they kind of sending off to for the production of consoles over in China and whatnot, they're making those consoles, but the parts and the equipment that they've got, that's increased. The energy that they're using's increased. The staff wages might have increased. The overheads, etc., etc., etc. For them, it goes down. It goes on. They go, okay, Microsoft, like we know you've this is the X budget for this, but it's going to cost this much now because it's like we're losing money on this now. Something gets
Yeah,
passed through to Microsoft, so on and so
there's
forth.
no doubt that they've had to renegotiate the contracts, and I completely understand that point. And I actually don't have a problem with them raising the price of Game Pass. I think that the value is always there in Game Pass, and I think that that $2 or $3 increase, depending on where you are in the world, is
Yeah.
still definitely worth it. The problem I have is that entry level cost, and you just suggested inflation. Inflation is affecting the consumer just as much. Microsoft
Yeah.
always take a loss, and most companies will take a loss to get people into that ecosystem. Once they're in that ecosystem, then they will stay there generally, and they can make their money back. This is typically how gaming consoles work, and I just would have
Yeah.
loved it if Microsoft covered that cost for a little bit longer. It puts that differentiation between Sony and Xbox when it comes to that entry level cost of the actual console, and I just think they had. They had a winner here. They could have just covered that cost and got people into the ecosystem. But what
Yeah.
do you think, Umbra?
The
Sorry,
slight good
Dutch.
news on this, yeah, that's all right. The slight good news on this front, though, is it is only the Series X that's being affected. The Series S remains the same. Now,
Yeah, that is really
uh,
good.
I personally, I think that boils down to the method of production for the Series X and compared to the Series
I
S.
would have thought that it's the amount of silicone that's actually in that Series X chip is ridiculous, and for them to get it to the
It's
price
not
they're
just
getting
that;
it to is amazing.
yeah, it's not just that. It's the production stylings of the Series X compared to the S. So the S is just a traditional single motherboard. The X is split motherboard, and in its own. Of course, we know nice steel
Yeah.
casing inside there or aluminium casing. So it is entirely different, and the build method on that is much more costly to produce than the Series S. So I think there's a reasoning behind that. The Series X will have increased in costs, whereas the Series S is very simplistic to put together and actually manufacture. So I think on that front, that's why the Series S hasn't budged and the Series X
Oh,
has. Another thing for UK, in terms of that, and I know this from personal experience, leaving the European Union has had a massive effect on import and export costs, even from a regular consumer standpoint. So if I'm even just trying to ship something over like an hour over the water to the Netherlands or Germany or something to any of my guys, like if I send them a controller, for instance, it would cost them pretty much the cost of the controller in shipping in customs costs to get the controller as it would for me just to buy a controller and send them the money, or just send them the money for the controller in the first place.
what annoys to me
Yeah.
is Xbox generally lead when it comes to things like this. I mean, they were the first ones to have a live service. They're first ones to have like a lot of things when it comes to these things in the industry. And for them to follow Sony's lead, I think was incredibly disappointing. But I'd like to get your thoughts, Umbra.
Well, the thing is like I hear you on that, but the problem is, it's like when it comes to capitalistic ventures and moves, Pete, they're gonna go where the market is going, and they don't have that market that Sony has. To be fair, Sony can say, "Hey, we're gonna raise these prices," and a lot of our hooved brothers will still be like, "Okay, clippity, clippity clop, let me buy it." Still, if anything, I had to, I guess, hold Microsoft account to would be the raising of the prices of the console. When Sony did it, I thought it was horrendous. Microsoft doing it, I have to hold the same energy. To me, that is the most egregious, simply because it's 3 years or 2 years, whatever. for Sony, I think at that point it was 2 years, but it was 3 years now into the service. Well, not the service, but into the life of the Series X and S. The Series S wasn't affected, of course, but to raise the price 3 years in, I just think that's a terrible precedent to set. And I am like Riskit, I'm going to be honest, and I said this before when it came to Sony raising the prices of the games to 70, I blame Sony for this as well. And Microsoft is their own company, so they're going to have to hold their own L, right? But I think when you have somebody who has the market power of Sony and they're pushing that, for Microsoft not to try to get that into account for the losses they're going to take for when they've already been taking losses per console they sell anyway. So this will help with that. I get it, but it's still an L in the sense that you're raising the price 3 years in.
Well,
Now, for Game Pass, go ahead.
Well, Palpatine in the chat sort of raised an interesting point, and long-time supporter Palpatine, shout out to you, man. That they might be doing this because of ABK, because it sort of does lend to some of the FTC's argument that, hey, Microsoft could drop prices and essentially partially or totally foreclose on ABK. And this might be them trying to, and this is not giving Microsoft a pass because I still think it's a stupid reason to do it. This might be them trying to meet the market.
You do bring up a great point there, because I'm sure previously they've mentioned that they wouldn't increase prices post ABK closure.
Yeah, doing it beforehand was definitely the smarter move. That absolutely. I will admit that, and I think they they had this in the plans already. So they did it now as to not say, oh, look, see, they raised the price right after they were approved for the ABK thing. Like, that's exactly why they did it now. But as far as I was going to say too, as far as the Game Pass thing, I'm not trying to diminish it because I don't like the prices being raised, but we knew this was coming. We talked about this actually on the show about the last time when they actually raised I think the price for games. Remember, Pete and Risk?
Yeah, I remember. I remember, and I actually did. I thought that Microsoft wouldn't do it.
I thought it'd be a while. Yeah, I thought it'd be a while. Like, I don't see it happening.
I thought they would restructure the pricing when friends and family come in, and we're still waiting for that. Of course, I'm going to be jumping on friends and family when it comes out, because it's still going to be much more cost effective for getting 5 or 6 people on that. So
absolutely, and I think that's what helps. By the way, Dutch, just to add to that point, I think that helps. By the way, alleviate any stress of people being like, "Oh, well, you raised the price of this." Well, you can do the family plan. That won't hurt you at all. But just to say, this is why I'm kind of on Microsoft's, not on their side, but I'm not hurt by this because it's only $1 or $2. $1 if you're for basic Game Pass, and then Game Pass Ultimate $2. I know it's a little different over there in Australia and other places, but it's the equivalent of the same what we get here in America.
It is.
So it's not a ridiculous increase. Like if it was like $5, I'm like, hold on now. But $1 or $2, that doesn't really hurt anybody. Let's just be honest. It really doesn't. So that's why I'm like, I don't really have smoke for them for that. That doesn't bother me so much. And I think, I can understand if people don't like it. I don't like that they did it, but it's not harmful, I would say. The console raising of the console prices 3 years in, that I think is harmful. And I think is a bad precedent to be set, be it Microsoft or Sony. But I do definitely hold Sony accountable for why Microsoft is doing it. And I hold Microsoft accountable for following step instead of kind of paving their own way, like Pete pointed out. So it's a double-edged sword to me.
Yeah. Yeah, look,
I want to just quickly touch on that comment that you highlighted on screen there for Starman Sky, Starfield otherwise. You can stream it on cloud when it comes out, but I probably wouldn't recommend it because it's not gonna look anywhere near as good as it is. I'd personally recommend you trade in and get a Series S if you're gonna try to play it natively, and that would look much better.
Yeah, Bobby Hawk, I think you might actually have to fork out for a real console. Look, we love Bobby. He's our resident pony. He's always stirring up trouble in the chat. We love having him here. But yeah, I think it might be time for you to get a real console, Bobby. Cutie, I do want to get to you, and get your take on why you think that Microsoft are raising the price of the console now. Do you think it's an egregious thing? I do personally. I think it's something they shouldn't have done. But yeah,
I think it's because Sony's keeps dragging them into court. That's why I think they keep raising the price.
So you said
Like,
before, Cutie, you think it's good business.
I do.
So,
I think it is. I think it is good business. And yeah, I mean, I think we did get a really good price when the Series X did come out. And I mean, the Series S is incredible for what it can do. So, you know, and I've said before, like I would pay almost double what Game Pass started as for what I get. So for me, it doesn't bother me. Number one, because I already have this hardware, and moving forward, you know, it's supply and demand. You know what I mean? So before they like ran out of Xboxes, they ran out of PlayStations. You know what I mean? So I think they're trying to reset the ecosystem a little bit and trying to make it okay. Well, you know, everything's gone up, inflation's going up. The cost to bring in the stuff to make the consoles is going up. So yeah, I mean, I would say that it would actually cost them more on the business side. And yeah, they're paying so much money for lawyers and things like that. So, you know, it's I think it's totally okay. I don't mind.
Wow. Yeah, I would say it's totally not okay to I'm gonna have to disagree with you. I think it's totally not okay to pass on, if it's the cost of the lawyers. Like pass on the.
I was joking.
But it's
I think it's because it's the cost to produce this now. It's just as simple
yeah,
as that.
I actually think that Phil just pointed out that Xbox Series X's have become more prevalent and in stock recently, and I think that these ones that we're getting in stock are of the renegotiated prices, and we do know that the chip makers really held pretty much everyone's feet to the fire when it came to these things. They had so much leverage over everybody and they had so much backlog. And I think that new contract they signed was incredibly expensive. And we know that the PlayStation 5 was pretty much making money pretty much instantly when it first came out. But we've never actually found out
it
what
cost me both my kidneys, Pete. It was so gosh darn expensive here.
Yeah, but
How
we
are you
don't
still
know
alive?
don't know what the price of the Xbox was to actually manufacture, and then how much money that they were losing, but that they were definitely losing money. Like I said, I think that chip itself was the price of the console, and that's only gone up now. Do I think that's still a reason for them to raise the prices? No, I don't. Always keep entry
honestly,
level
Pete,
low.
it's the cost of living these days. Honestly, everything is going up, and I think. I love Xbox and I still want them to make games. So if this is the price, if this is the cost, if my monthly Game Pass subscription does go up, like I think it's a good deal and I don't mind.
Yeah, well, that's
But Cutie, you just said that the cost of living is going up. So doesn't that suggest you keep the price low and then get the money back in the software? Because all you're doing is really just excluding people out of that market.
You're creating a larger. You are creating a larger barrier to entry.
Yes, but I would also suggest that maybe that increase in how much it costs or how much they on the developer side, what games they do bring in might be less because of the amount of money that they need to make. They might be limiting how many games they can make because of that. So I dare say that keeping the price the same would limit us as gamers, and I don't want that.
Yeah, I think that's further. I think you're reaching.
I was going to say I'm going to give a devil's advocate thing here because it's not a nice thing to hear, but it is also an unfortunate fact of reality. It isn't a necessity to be. It is very much a luxury to be able to have a gaming console or two game.
Mm-hmm.
It's harsh to say it in those senses. We don't want price rises. We can't justify price rises, but we are fortunate to be able to afford to do the hobby that we do. And obviously we want more people to get in it. There are many options for people to get into it. One thing that Microsoft have in their favor, specifically on the console side, is that if people want to get consoles, they can get 0% APR with their own financing on Microsoft plans to be able to get a console with Ultimate for a very low monthly cost. So instead of buying console upfront,
if you do it that way as well, and you get Game Pass included. Incredible deal, but why aren't they advertising it, Dutch? I don't see advertising more anywhere, mate. Yeah.
This is what I was going to say. I was going to say, and kind of the way what Cutie was saying, as far as the price of cost of living going up, I'm never going to be like, oh well, that's too bad for this $1 trillion company, right? Like the cost of living going up, we got to do it for them, but as a caveat, as Riskit used to say, he tries not to say it anymore.
Caveat.
With the caveat of Microsoft, against like to push back on what you said, Pete, they have held off for a long time. To be fair, they did hold off for a long time on raising prices. So this is now them doing so, and it's not dramatic. So I can't really be mad at them for it. You know what I mean? That's what I looked at the details and I was like, and then I weighed it out. I'm like, well, I mean, it's 3 years in. They finally raised it $1 or $2. It's like it's not that bad.
Yeah,
really.
Umbra, I was going to say as well, though, another thing as well is, and this isn't just Microsoft in this instance, because they probably would have been waiting to see what was happening as well. But in the UK, and I think it's likely be the same worldwide, but this week we had from the government kind of projected inflation, etc. And they were expecting it to drop for a change, and instead they announced that inflation had remained the same at 8.7%. So it hadn't gone anywhere. So I think even Microsoft at that point were like, listen, we've got these inflation forecasts from X amount of places, and we've been expecting this drop, so we didn't have to announce this, but this drop isn't coming. We have the forecasts from our financial experts, and it's just not happening, so we're going to have to announce this increase. Now, do I think that they're probably going to bring this down as soon as they can? Absolutely.
Dutch, I think. Sorry to interrupt. I really agree with you on that point. Being a gamer, it's a luxury hobby. It really is, and yeah, I mean, it does cost money, and if the price goes up and you can't participate anymore, then that's just simply the way that it is, because this is a first world problem.
That would go against your saying when everybody plays, everybody wins. Cutie, you like to say.
I know that. No, I know that. I know that.
I think what Cutie means to say is when everybody plays, everybody wins unless you can't afford it.
Exactly.
When everybody pays,
if you can afford to play, you will win.
When everybody pays, everybody wins. That's the new slogan.
So look, there's a lot of. So I was sitting back and sort of letting it sort of trail out a bit. There's a lot of inflation talk. There's a lot of chip talk. There's a lot of silicon talk. As to the reason why they've done this now, I don't think that's it. This is what I think is it, and I think from a purely business standpoint, and it's predatory. I think it really, really is. They just had a really top-notch showcase that, unless you're absolutely kidding yourself, and Broken Games HD, I'm looking at you. Dude gave it a 5. I don't know what he's been smoking, but it was definitely not 5. But look, they just had a crazy showcase. They had an amazing Starfield Direct. The response has been humongous. People, I think the sales went up 1,000 and something% on Amazon for Xbox Series X's after the show. I think that they saw this as the time. Yep, inflation, I think, feeds into it. The cost of the consoles definitely feeds into it. But the Game Pass service is probably not costing them any more than it already was. So I don't think there's any cost cost of service going up for them where they're like, oh, it's inflation, the cost of our service is going up. I mean, obviously inflation can feed into that, so it's there. But I don't think it would be a major thing. What I think it is they're like, cool, we've got a winner with Starfield. We've got a reason for people to come to our console. If we're going to raise prices, now's the time to do it while everyone's rushing into the service. I really think that's what's it. And why they've done it, and I think it's predatory, and I don't think it's right. And I not because I gave PlayStation the smoke, I just don't think it's right. I think it's the wrong thing to do from a consumer standpoint, and I am a fucking consumer. And I think Microsoft's been really, really good at being a consumer, and it feeds back into the point, and me and Umbra have had this argument in the background many, many times. It feeds into what a company can get away with, they will do. And so I don't think, that feeds into lots of other different arguments about whether, they should continue to acquire people and so on and so forth. We won't go there. But I did
This is why Microsoft needs to acquire most of the gaming and stop.
I was saying, as a benefit for Xbox is that they do have multiple options for people who are struggling to be able to afford to be in gaming, modern gaming, to be able to get into it in the first place. Like we mentioned, with the plan to be able to get a console and Game Pass on a monthly subscription that isn't costing you with APR or percentage increases. You can get Game Pass. You can just get the console version and not Ultimate, and that's cheaper again. You can just there's methods. There's always methods. Again, you can go on CDPs. Obviously, don't shout that out loud. You can get cheaper monthly subscriptions there. If you use Xbox Rewards or Bing Rewards, you can save up points and get your subscription via that. There's methods.
They do have lots of different options.
Sony doesn't have. That's the problem. Sony doesn't have those methods.
Yeah, there are so many people that are so dedicated on running those points, like so that they don't have to pay actual money for their gaming subscription, which is, you know, the fact that they have that option available is amazing. And that's that's probably one of the main reasons why, outside of, you know, the amount of games that are available on there, why Xbox Game Pass is better than PlayStation Plus.
Oh, that's very bot of you to say. It's very console warish. It's quite toxic. We won't have that here. No.
I'm spitting facts, Riskit. We all know it.
Yeah, well, look at the value proposition. And I hate saying that because it just sounds like I sound like Phil. The value proposition of, but the value proposition of Game Pass is way, way over, you know, PlayStation Plus. But if you're not even comparing it, the cost, I think it's in Australia now, it's $18.95, and that's the top tier of PlayStation. And if you do compare the two, Xbox just has it all over them. It's not even you can't even make that comparison. So look, the value's still there for me. I'm not really super mad about Game Pass. I don't think it's a good thing to do, and I don't think they did it because of inflation or because of the extra costs that they're incurring. I mean, I'm sure that feeds into it, but I think the main reason was in regards to the timing, you know, basically because they knew they're on a winner with Starfield and people were still going to buy into the ecosystem. One other thing I'm going to follow up, and then we'll move on to the next topic. But Wandering Dutch made an awesome point, and I don't think it gets shouted out enough, so I am going to shout it out here. If you're in Australia, it's through a phone company called Telstra. I don't know what it's through in the UK or in the US, but they do have an option for you to get into gaming. It's called Xbox All Access. I would look that up. And one thing that a lot of people don't actually know, and when I tell people, they don't actually believe me because no credit works like this. You actually save money. If you were to go through All Access, you pay less than you would for the total cost of the console, and the Game Pass subscription for a year actually costs you less to go through that credit option. So I think it's a fantastic deal. I don't think they advertise it enough, and they really, really should. We'll move on to the next topic. So
just
guys,
to add before you move on, Risk, it's Citizens One here in America that does the financing.
Yeah, it's Game here in the UK.
Game, copy that. So Citizen One, Game, and Telstra. Look those up. Xbox All Access, I believe it's called the same thing in every service. 2 seconds.
Yeah.
Sorry, had to cough, had to mute myself. We're going to move on to the next topic. Before we do, please hit the like button if you guys are already subscribed. If you're not subscribed, please subscribe, hit that bell so you know when we go live. We go live at 8 p.m. EST every Friday. If you are in the US, in the UK, unfortunately, it's very, very late. I think it's like 12 a.m. And if you're in Australia, it's like 10, 11. I don't even know what my own time zone is. Jax82 with the $2 super chat says, Phil did say price would go up. Didn't say on what. Yeah, well, he definitely didn't make it seem like it was fucking everything because we had that conversation. We thought it would be games. And when the games went up, we thought that was it. But apparently, it's not. Bobby Hawk, Dutch, did you see a lot of those Final Fantasy 16 buses? I don't know what he's talking about, Dutch. Do you know what he's talking about?
Not in where I'm situated. In London, you'll see lots of different multicolored PlayStation buses, absolutely, because that's the only place they like to decorate with advertisements in the UK.
Right, that's what he's getting at. Yeah.
Everywhere else doesn't exist to the outer world. It's just London. So.
Yeah, it's true. We don't see any. I don't see the advertisements over here. But Pete, I would probably. You're not really in the main city, but you don't really do that advertising these days. PlayStation does, but Xbox, no.
Last time I saw any big type of advertising by Xbox is when I think Forza Horizon came out. I think it was, and they actually entered a car into Bathurst with the Xbox logo on it. That was really, really cool. And then if you go way back, they had trams painted in Finish the Fight going through Melbourne City.
Yeah, if you don't know what Bathurst is, it's actually our national egg race. So what we do is we jump into a potato sack and everyone holds on to an egg on a spoon.
I was believing you too. I'm like, what? What is this foolery?
Wow.
It's
actually
a
a kangaroo sack.
It's our national stock car race. which is quite huge. So if you're into racing, you probably know what Bathurst is. It's just
So wait a minute, is it the Australian version of NASCAR? Is that what it
It's
is?
NASCAR,
Yeah.
bro. That's exactly what it is.
Well,
Okay.
no,
So you got
NASCAR.
like the
NASCAR's
Australian hicks out there, huh?
No,
Listen, watching it and stuff.
NASCAR's like a round track, so you guys go round and round and round. Where Bathurst
Right.
is actually like a
A full track is not circular, you're saying?
yeah, a
basically.
full track race. Yeah,
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
cool,
and they-
cool.
and they
I'm
race
pretty
stuff.
sure
More
Bathurst
dirty.
track is in motorsport, one of the motorsports. I'm not exactly sure which one it is, but it is definitely there. It's crazy dangerous track. It's like
How do you spell it, Pete? How do you spell it? Let me look it up.
Bathurst?
I'll look.
Oh, it's spelled
Is it
really
Belfast?
weird.
G. It's G O G G O.
Bathurst is
So in Forza Motorsport 5,
BATHUR. Bathurst.
I'll type it. I'll type it into the guest chat for you, Umbra, and we'll
I'll figure it out. I'll figure it out.
we're having like a spelling bee competition on Xbox Infinite.
If you want to actually run the track, you can do it in Forza Motorsport 5.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and that's the Mount Panorama.
Right. Yeah.
Circuit.
Yeah. No,
Thanks,
it
Wayne.
is. It
Thanks,
is.
bro. I got a bit stressed trying to spell in live, bro.
It is Mount Panorama. Is that that's the actual area, right? Pete?
Yeah,
Mount Panorama.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's very interesting because you can actually hear the cars from like kilometers away going because it's a hill on a mountain. So
Well,
yeah, it's actually really interesting.
It's really crazy to watch when they put the egg on the spoon and they hop with the stuff. It's really good. You guys should tune in. Look, we'll move on. There is a little bit more Australian. We've got a lot of subscribers coming through. Thank you guys, every single one of you that have subscribed. Really appreciate all of you. And they're hard to read because of the way I got it set up. I'll work on that for next week. But this is something that's very, very, very Australian, and I just wanted to call it out. And Pete, we were sort of interested. There's Cutie threw this one in the chat, and I really appreciate that you did. The digital games offset passed in Australia, which what that means is for us Australians, is you will notice that there's not many developers from Australia that you don't see many games coming out of our country, which is a bit of a sad thing. It's because of the cost that it would incur. And I think we had an Activision studio that moved out of Australia. And basically what this is it gives game developers a pass and much needed cash to continue development of games. So hopefully in the future, I didn't want to stick on this one for too long, but hopefully in the future, we will see a lot more games coming out of Australia. So Cutie, I really appreciate you throwing that in there. I actually had a bit of a conversation with the guy who was campaigning for that. So Pete,
Yeah.
a great thing to see as well. I don't want to stick on that for too long because it's very Australian and,
No, but you know what? Cult of the Lamb. That's the prime example of how good studios that are from Australia, when they're given the time, the funding, they can create fantastic games. So, and I really look forward to seeing what this does for the Australian gaming industry.
Yeah, absolutely. Me too. And one thing I'll sort of note is Sarah Bond is in that the accelerator program for developers, for underrepresented developers. I feel like Australia as a whole we have a very multicultural country, and I feel like Australia is actually underrepresented. And I would, I'd like to see some kangaroo games, some lethal spider games, or some shark games, or something that can. Maybe you have to walk through the bush. Anyway, I'm just talking shit. I'll move on to the next
No,
topic.
there's actually I actually want to shout out.
quickly.
Sorry.
Sorry, Kitty, you go.
No, you go, Pete.
I was just going to say that it's fantastic. So it's of any game that is over the $500,000 mark. So we've got plenty of indie games that are coming out. I think Silk Song is made in Adelaide. We had Cult of the Lamb also made in Melbourne. So we do have a lot of indie games, but those big titles we're really missing out on. And there's so much talent that is, from in this country that just has to go overseas to get and make the things that they want to make. And I think the last big game, or one of the nails in the coffin, was Rockstar Sydney, that were based in Bondi, that made LA Noire. Fantastic game. One of the I think the very first game to have facial recognition. So it shows you the talent that we have in this country, and for the government to actually put this 30% offset down is just fantastic news. It's going to keep great developers in this country, and hopefully we see really great things out of it.
I was going to say that LA Noire was trash, but I know that upsets you, so I won't.
Such a great game.
I won't do it.
LA Noire.
I'm gonna put it in the chat. because
Yeah.
y'all keep talking. There's a game called Broken Roads, and it's actually a game set in post-apocalyptic Australia. It's not out yet, but you can play the preview on Steam. And
I feel like I've heard it before. The name of that Broken Road.
yeah, so I've put it in the chat, and that's they're part of that Made in Melbourne program. So I can imagine that funding is really going to help that game look amazing. So they were actually at PAX last year, and I think they'll be here again. Yeah, so it's made by Drop Bear Bytes. That's the name of the studio. So
Right.
yeah, definitely
And
check them out.
if you don't know, drop bear bites can be lethal. Look, I'm gonna move on to the next topic. Before I do, we had a super chat come in from Highlander with a $5 super chat. You're an absolute champion. Thank you very much, mate. He said the attorneys for the FTC sounded like he wanted to phone a friend to ask questions of Phil. Yeah, it was. From the sounds of it, it was a bit of a disaster for the FTC. Sappho with a $1.99 super chat. Has anyone tried kangaroo burgers? I think you're kidding, but I'm really not when I say this. Yes, I have. Kangaroo burgers are...
Yeah, I have as well. I've tried kangaroo.
Yeah, they're not bad.
How could
No,
you
it
all
tastes
eat those
good.
happy hopping friends of ours? What's wrong with
Happy?
you?
Did you not
They're
see
not
that
happy.
video I sent in the chat, Pete?
They're not happy at all.
Umbra?
They were being abused, and he had to fight back. That's all.
I did see that.
That
poor guy.
kangaroo was
Yeah.
asking for it. Like,
Yeah,
Yeah, Cutie was watching it like, I'm gonna make a burger out of you. You keep fighting.
Yeah, I did see that. We'll jump on to the next
I've
topic.
eaten crocodile as well. Just saying.
Oh Lord,
There's
you all. You know what?
I like
What's
meat.
going
What
on
can I
over
say?
there?
Oh my god! But
You all just see. That's why I can't go over there. You all be cooking up all. Here's a wallaby. You ready?
Final
Oh,
Fantasy 16. I'm going to move on to off the Australian white-tailed deer stuff that we're talking about, Carolina Gamer. But Final Fantasy 16, Metacritic 88. Okay, so this is sort of an interesting one for me. Again, it's another game that's come out on PlayStation that's got a very decent score. I think it's a great score.
What?
Great score to have.
Bad road risk.
I'm gonna mute everyone.
I can't remove it. I can't remove it.
What's he trying to remove?
How did you write that? Look up.
Okay, I'm looking. I will find it later on. You guys can tell me all about it. Dutch is like, what the hell is wrong with these Australians and this weird American? But Final Fantasy 16 got an 88. Technically, it's not great, right? Pete, you were talking about how it was overheating consoles, and someone mentioned that in the chat. It is actually apparently overheating consoles. I hadn't had a chance to look that up, but I will. But it's dropping to 720p in boss fights. And what do we... I don't think we have going back to the review score frameworks again. We've had this conversation, I know, many times. And Dutch, I want to get your sort of I just saw what he wrote. I just want to get your opinion on basically media reviews these days. Now, my contention is I do feel like there's a media bias. I think to remove that media bias, there's a few things that we can do. But one of the things that I think is necessary that needs to happen, that is very reasonable for consumers to want, is a framework in which review sites review games. And when I say framework, I mean graphics are looked at, technical performance is looked at, story, obviously if it's not a multiplayer game, is looked at. The strength of its game loop is looked at. All these things are put into a framework, and we are shown how a review is actually done instead of based on, I just feel like it was an 88. So what are your thoughts, Dutch, on first Final Fantasy landing an 88 when it's so technically underperforming? And do you think we need to have a framework within the industry across the board for all media sites so that at least we know that reviews can be trusted?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there definitely needs to be a rework of it entirely. I don't even like the scoring methods, to be honest. I much prefer ACG's just simplified version where it's just, would you buy it, would you rent it, would you wait for a sale? That's a much better way to rate things, to be honest, especially in the modern consumer world. Like having an actual rating on something like stars out of for movies and things like that, I don't get. Is it a good film? Is it not? That's all I need to know. Is it a good game? Is it not? And what are the reasons for that? Why is it a good game? Tell me in your breakdown, in your review, why it is a good game. What's the technical performance like? Does the story hold up start to finish? If you're reviewing a game, you need to finish the game. Is a key point, and I don't feel like, specifically with the likes of Final Fantasy, that a lot of those that give it high ratings finished the game, because those that did finish the game fully did not give it a high rating. The story completely destroys, like it
Yeah.
absolutely just goes batshit crazy in the last section, and it did exactly the same thing in Final Fantasy 15. Like the last section of 15, it just completely goes off the rails. Like it just went down a weird little one-way track on 15 and didn't get anywhere. And it's exactly what's happened with 16. It opens really strong, and you've got this really strong opening to the story, but at the end, it just completely goes weird. But we've had this already this generation. We've had it before, where we look at a review and we go, these guys they absolutely didn't finish the game. Like, if they finished the game, they would have come across these points. They would have come across what we're finding when we're actually going and playing it for ourselves. So I don't believe that reviewers are actually finishing these games. And if they're complaining about timelines, etc., well, I'm sorry, but unless you're freelance, where you're paid only on the article that you've written, if you're a full-time journalist, then your whole job is to sit there, play the game from start to finish, and review it. That's what you should be doing.
Mhm.
I don't think a lot of these are doing that thoroughly.
I was on, like I said at the beginning of the podcast, I was on Well Played podcast, and one of the people on, or two of the people, sorry, there was Skill Up and another person on the podcast who's a regular member. They both got sent to Japan to play this game before anyone else. So,
Yeah.
and they both didn't score this game very highly. And I said to the guys, because there was much debate on, the number of the score. They gave it 7. And they were like, is that too harsh? And I think I said to him, I said, look, are you questioning it because, you obviously were part of a group of people that were given, a very expensive portion of this trip to go and play this game? Like, does that buttering up of people and journalists and things like that, does that sway their opinion because they do want to be invited on these trips and they want it to happen again? So I dare say that I think they tend to spoil journalists and try to wow them in these experiences in order to give them perhaps a better view of the game. And it's unfortunate, but it does happen.
Oh yeah, definitely, absolutely happens. But I think if we can build a framework, if we can hold media sites to, hey, this is the framework that should be expected. It's not regulated, is it? I mean, it's a bit of it probably sounds like a silly thing to regulate, how sites review a game. But I think part of the framework, like Dutch was saying, at the very least, is you have to finish the game. Like, that's step one, right?
Yeah.
And then
we've had that debate here before.
That not. Yep. I also agree with what Doom was saying in the fact that I think developers need to stop giving certain media companies early access, lavishing them with trips, paying them to go out there and play in the games, because it does create a conundrum for that particular person. They felt like they felt like they're special. They felt like they need to give it a high mark. And I've seen this I've seen obviously for PlayStation, we've seen it, but we've seen it for Xbox as well, where a lot of people kind of lose a little bit of the ethical awareness, really, in what they're actually meant to be doing, and that's reviewing a game with dignity, and actually sitting there and saying,
integrity, I think, is the
integrity. Sorry.
I think if
and set aside all the costs and the spoiling that you've had for the flights have been paid for and all of this stuff, you set that aside to the back for a moment, and you wouldn't be doing the developers justice, realistically, if you were to go to them, oh, it's absolutely amazing, there's nothing wrong with it, like, loved it, 10 out of 10, brilliant. Like, they'd like the praise, but ultimately, if you're a developer, you'd be going, yeah, but is there anything that can be improved? Like, as an artist, as somebody who has designed things, etc., nothing is ever perfect. We all want to strive and improve things. I don't think I'd believe somebody giving like consistent praise like that after you've flown them out. I'd be like, no, but seriously, what do you think? Like, I want to know like actual honest thoughts here, not just like arse kissing. And a
Well,
lot
people
of it
lose
is
their
down to the off.
integrity very, very quickly if they did that. And the fact is, we do go to sites we trust because they do have that integrity. And if everyone's just
Yeah.
praising everything because they're just being
Mm.
given flights and games, then you're not going to listen to them for too much longer. I mean, I've said it a
Yeah.
million times. I trust SkillUp and ACG because I think that they are very genuine when they give their report on games. We do know, however, that certain media companies have been blacklisted by PlayStation when they review their
Big
games
enough.
badly,
Very
and I
true.
think the framework will help very much to combat that because if they have to work within that frame rate, then that subjective view, and I mean games are always going to be subjective, but that subjective view can be taken out of it a little bit.
I'm sorry
I
if you.
will. Agree,
Yeah.
I agree with that, and I'll go ahead. Risk. What were you gonna say?
I was just going to say, if you heard that ding, that was me having an idea. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh,
I was also going to say as well, actually, to that one, Jedi. I think, and they're all getting blacklisted, but there's only so many companies you can blacklist until you've got nobody left to review your game. So I think if we
That's true.
all just actually reviewed something honestly,
So
there's they couldn't blanket blacklist because then nothing would happen.
I did want to jump
So
in
there would have-
and sort of mention something. Sorry to cut you off, Dutch, and then I'll jump over to you,
All
Umbra,
right.
because I did cut you off. But I did want to mention, you sort of mentioned Skill Up. Now, Skill Up does get flown out to these events. He 110% does get sort of looked after, and I don't know about looked after, but he does. Obviously, I don't know this for sure, but he's never said it. But I would say that they would fly out ACG. I'd say they would fly out Skill Up if they wanted to go to these things, and they obviously do get the games early to review given to them by the companies, and that can for some people be enough for them to be biased. I don't think that that's a major issue. I understand what you're saying, Dutch. I don't think it's a major issue like flying people out and doing that. It can create a bias. I think you have to have the right people. And I also think you need to make people aware that that's what's happened prior to your review. So a little bit like when I was saying I may be biased here because I've spoken to Pete Hines. I did that for a reason because I prefaced that because I have spoken to the guy. And there may be a little bit of bias there. And I want people to be aware of that and they can make their own judgment about whether I'm being biased or not. And that's sort of what I like a little bit about ACG's reviews. Is that he does do that. He says, hey, I was given this code, and of course I'm going to buy a code for someone else, blah, 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 blah. I like that he does that. He's honest about what he's been given and what sort of happened around his review so that you can form an opinion based on what you think. And I also think that this has been good for creators like SkillUp, like ACG, and some Mr. Matty Plays and a lot of these guys who do reviews. It's been good to see that these guys have been holding their integrity, and the media bias that is there has pushed people to creators. So it's been good for them. But I really just think, again, and Umbra, I'm going to jump to you. I really just think that we need to have a framework in something that we can trust.
No, I agree with that. And just going off and piggybacking off of what you and Pete kind of said, really, I do have a trust for SkillUp, but more so ACG than anybody else. I would say ACG, and you mentioned him too, Mr. Matty Plays. I've watched their reviews and listened to them, and they have a lot of integrity. I already knew ACG did. I've been listening to him for a while, and they don't really hold back when it's they have to say what it is. They'll say exactly what it is, despite whatever repercussions they can get from it. ACG in particular, who actually used to work with Matty, by the way, with a podcast and such. They're very straightforward. ACG extremely so, and fair, I think. And they give you a really robust review when it comes to things, so you can get an understanding of why they feel the way they feel. And I've watched both SkillUp and ACG, and I think, I see why you guys like them so much, as SkillUp as much as you do, because I watched his reviews, and he's very detail oriented too, much like ACG. And SkillUp had a really negative review. Well, not really negative, but he had a negative review of Final Fantasy 16, and he said it promised to be an evolution, but instead it's a big step backwards. Outside of his impressive combat and cutscenes, there's really nothing else, with RPG elements in particular being totally absent. I hope this isn't true. Isn't the future of Final Fantasy, rather. That's a big statement. So basically, Final Fantasy 16 is straightforward action, which is not bad for me because I don't care for turn-based as much as I care for straight action. But if I can imagine, pure Final Fantasy fans are ticked off by this, and I will agree on the whole. It to me, I look at it kind of akin to pundits inside of politics, right? Where they'll have, oh my God, if the police would come through to get me now.
Oh no, they
Who
found
called
me.
on me? They got me. But I look at it akin to what's the word? What's the word? Lobbyists. I look at it akin to lobbyists in politics,
Mhm.
where politicians are bought off by companies and corporations with people they send in with money and gifts. This to me is akin to that when you send.
Hang on a minute. You
these
mean like
people and fly them out?
you mean like pitches that move,
Like a
gifts,
bribe.
or like gifts as in here's a present?
It's funny you say that because a lot of people will say, for the longest time, people will say, "Did you say GIF or gift?" It's just my vernacular. It's funny you said that.
You know,
It
Umbra,
makes
I
me
think
think back.
I think
Go ahead,
this
Kitty.
really just lends into the narrative that there is a massive gap in the market between these companies that are publicizing these games and organizing people to go out on these trips, and the people that they are selecting. Like, they really need to be vetted. They need to make sure that they are selecting people who are going to be honest about the review, but also
Yeah.
have integrity and professionalism and all that kind of stuff. So I think there's just a really big gap there.
I think the thing is though, Cutie, they want people who are going to give them kind of be improving their game.
I think
right?
they should have a mix.
I hear you, but they don't want that. They want to have shining reviews. Like I would, as an artist
Well,
too,
yeah,
Dutch.
yeah.
I would want that. By the way, if you all didn't know, Dutch did my layout and put together my intro with the music I provided him for the fix. By the way, just want to throw that out there. But
It is good work.
my
too,
thing
by the way.
is absolutely put in great work.
He's done
And
nothing.
what'd you say?
It's a pity. It's a pity the podcast isn't it? It doesn't match the good work at the start.
Hey, hey.
Except the week I was on. I
Look,
mean,
bro, Pete was ready to hop on it. You just beat him to the punch. There's so much support here. I appreciate the love. But I would argue that these companies want
Yeah.
they want these
Everyone wants to be seen in the
reviewers
best
to approve
light.
them like that.
Of course.
Yeah.
But you know
So
what?
I don't
Final
think
Fantasy is
they
still
want
gonna
that.
make
I don't
money.
think they. Oh yes, no question. And I
Yeah.
think ultimately it's a decent game. I don't think it's a bad game. I just don't think it's a good Final Fantasy game.
You
That's
may-
what it seems to be
Yeah.
the case.
I don't think Square Enix will come out and admit that it hasn't hit demand like they do with Western games.
No, I agree
yeah.
with you.
Oh, no question.
No, of
No
course
question
not.
at all.
I agree
Oh
with
yeah,
you.
no question.
But
But
Umbra, you
I
sort
still
of raised
think
a
it
good.
will do well though, because it is an 88 though. To be fair, but I will say that I think that 88 is skewed because you look at the user review score, it's like
Oh, yeah.
77, I think. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
it's probably more of a 75-ish game instead of an 88. But I think a lot of that influence of what you guys were talking about from people getting preferential treatment and such like that has
wouldn't
rubbed off
have
on it.
known they got a PlayStation bump,
That too. To be fair, to
It
get the old
probably did-
PlayStation bump.
It probably did get a little PlayStation bump, but also as well, I think you brought up a really good point, which Skill Up brought up. I don't know if ACG, I haven't seen his review on it yet, but it's not the RPG that Final Fantasy is. That's what Final Fantasy has been, an RPG. And not only is it not an RPG, it's been twisted into an action game. If it was an action RPG, that's sort of a progression, right? They didn't even make that sort of progression. They just jumped straight into action. That's what we're doing. So, I mean, I haven't finished the demo, to be honest. I will finish it probably today, tomorrow, and just check it out. But yeah, it's not what Final Fantasy is about. I guess if you're an action lover, it might bring a whole new audience. But again, when you look at the user score reviews, I think you've got to be careful too, because there's obviously a lot of review bombing. And guys in the audience, don't do that shit. If you do that just because the ponies do it, don't do it. It's a terrible thing.
Well, Starfield's already rated a 0 by a lot of people.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
some
over now,
idiot
yeah.
already got there. That needs to change. If you talk about anything, Risk, you talk about the whole review
They
process.
need to go down the
That
Steam
needs to
route. I've said this before. They need to go down the Steam route where it has to connect to the platform.
Verified,
that you
exactly.
on it, verified that you
Exactly.
played the game.
Agreed, 100%. It has to be verified that you bought this game and you put in whatever hours you need to put in.
Show the hours you've played it.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't think any
not
game
1
should
minute
get a
or something
10.
like that.
No,
That's a great way to do it.
Any game should get a 0. I just don't think there's any perfect game out there, and I don't think any game deserves a 0. So Witcher 3, my favorite game of all time. There was points in that game, I think in the bog, where it went down to 22 frames, and it was incredibly noticeable and incredibly distracting. I mean, it has to lose points for that.
Yeah. Look, 110%. I think technicality of the game, as in, is it technically sound? I think should be something. I've been talking about this for probably about a year now. I've been banging this drum, but I think it should be something that's considered within the review, and that's what I do like about Skill Ups. He does do it on PC. He does talk about if it's really bad on Xbox as well, though. So, I mean, I just think we need to see a framework for this. I don't think there's any perfect solution, but Dutch and Umbra, those two solutions where it links to your gamer tag, shows the amount of hours that you put in. I think that is a really good solution for the user score side of things. I never thought there was one. I couldn't think of one. So that's a perfect solution that Metacritic needs to do. I think we should review bomb the site to see if they
Steam do that currently. It tells you on the Steam profile how many hours you've played for, down to the 0.1 of an hour. So it tells you if you've only played 10 minutes, it'll tell you you've only played 10 minutes.
And if it by the way, if it's only like so little minutes, 10 minutes and etc., 20 minutes, etc., it should not be allowed to be put in. You have to, I would say, put in at minimum 4 hours or something like that before you can say, hey, this is what it is.
Yeah, it should be
more
X
than
amount of the game's total play time, because it obviously depends. If the game's only 2 hours long, then it's going to be a different percentage of the game.
True.
But you've only played 10, 20 minutes of it, and it covers most of it. But
True.
it should be percentage.
Imagine Starfield. Imagine though, Dutch, a 2 hour review of Starfield, which a game is going to take like 2 years to fully play through.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was saying about Starfield, though. Like, that game needs to be out in reviewers' hands a month early
now
to review that correctly.
Yeah, now. And if you are listening, Bethesda, I have put in for a review copy. I know I won't get one, but if you could just
Tim, please listen.
please. I will rate it whatever you want. No, only kidding. But that jumps us to my integrity is on the table. Look, we do have to wrap up the show, but before I do, I've got a couple of super chats that have come in. Sappho with the 199. Oh, we already did the kangaroo burgers. Yes, I have. And this came in while we're talking about review codes, very relevant to what I just said. And it's not me, I swear to God, but it's Ass Eating Click with the $5 super chat. I knew Pete would laugh. If there's a developer watching, if you butter me up, I'll give you 11 out of 10. No backbone here. Fly me anywhere. My name is all you need to know. So, yeah.
What if they ask you to live up to your name and do that part?
I think that would depend on the game. But look, it's been an absolutely amazing show. I'm going to wrap it up and do outros. But before I do, the chat has been absolutely pumping today. You guys are amazing. Had a lot of new people in here. I really we all appreciate the support. You guys in the chat are usually hilarious. I think we have one of the funniest chats going, so I love every single one of you guys. You guys are amazing. Thank you for coming along and supporting us. Please hit the like button if you haven't. If you are new, consider subscribing. We go live at 8 p.m. EST every Friday. Wandering Dutch, man, I really appreciate you coming on the show. It's been a long time coming, so it's great to get you on. I'm very conscious of the time over there. I know it's super, super late, which is why I generally tend to avoid asking people in the UK to come on the show because I feel terrible about it, keeping you up. But again, thank you for coming on the show, giving us your takes.
Yeah, it's only 3 a.m. It's fine. So it's still early days, yeah.
Well, let's let the people know where they can find you, what you're up to. And if you do need to find Wandering Dutch and you can't remember, he is down in the description. You can find every podcast that he appears on, plus his channel, plus his Twitter. Head there, follow, like, subscribe.
Definitely, yeah. Thank you, and it's been a blast, guys. It's a pleasure coming on. And again, thankfully, it's on a weekend, so it falls within a time that I don't mind doing these super late shows. So, yeah, anytime you want me on, let me know. But it's been a blast. You can find me everywhere at Wandering Dutch, of course, YouTube Wandering Dutch, the home of the Midweek Mix Up podcast. You can find me on Thursdays with World of Gaming and Boxing Burger, and on Wednesday evenings another late show. With Primetime, with Boom as well. So yeah, thanks again, chaps and ladies.
Absolutely. Shout out to Boom. And Box is another one that I just cannot get on the show. We have talked, but man, it is super late for him, so he struggles. But
He's
one day,
an hour ahead of me as well. He's another hour ahead of me.
That's right.
one day I will get him. I'll have an early show or something. DoomCutie, another fantastic week. Let the people know what you're up to this week, what you'll be playing, and how your week's looking.
Thank you. As always, chat, you've been on fire. Big round of applause for you because, yeah, you guys are crazy today. Love it. And thank you so much, Wandering Dutch. It's been a pleasure having you. Yeah, you're always wonderful to have on a podcast. So, yeah, definitely check him out. This week, I will be biting my nails in anticipation for the launch of my podcast this coming weekend. So yeah, definitely looking forward to that. I have the amazing Alana Pierce as my first guest. So if you do happen to catch it, I'll put the link in the chat. Yeah, you'll get to see that, and we'll have cameras, unlike some other podcasts. But I always give Riskit crap for that. But this week I'll probably be playing more World of Warcraft. Not that anyone cares. And yeah, grinding my Diablo character to 100 probably.
Absolutely. Sorry, I just got
What level are you currently?
I just got an interesting
53.
I just got a super interesting super chat which I'll read out and then we'll jump back to outro. Ass Eating Click said, "Developers don't threaten me with a good time." So I think he was talking about what we were saying with the $2
They're
super
all
chat.
hairy and like just sweaty and.
Oh God, no!
Come on through.
Let's not go there. Infinite Umbra, another fantastic week, another fantastic show. Let people know what you'll be up to. Everyone missed the fix this week. I'm sure you'll be going live next week, so that'll be something to look forward to. So let people know where they can find you and what you'll be up to.
Absolutely. Thank you all for being here with us tonight. And of course, Dutch, for you being here with us, brother. Yeah, you guys can find me, of course, on Twitter, Infinite Umbra or Umbra Infinite. You'll find me either way. And Tuesdays on Xbox Factor with Boom and the Click with Daniel McGee and Retri, Game Pass Daily, for those who might know him as that. And Thursdays, of course, is my show, The Fix. It sound like Riskit said The Vix. I'm not sure. But yeah, The Fix. It was on Thursdays at 8 o'clock Eastern. Oh, yeah, the Xbox Factor is 12 o'clock Eastern, by the way. And, of course, you'll find me here, bringing up the whole podcast as I do, because, hell, Pete is not going to do it. So, somebody.
The place. He thinks he does. He thinks.
I was about to big you up. Dang. See this? See, she's ready to tear me down, too. Y'all hear this?
I thought you liked it when I was feisty. I don't know.
Toxic
Let me
Cutie.
stop myself. I had to bite my tongue just now.
Yeah.
Much love to Cutie and her start of her podcast. I didn't see this when you pointed out that you posted about Cutie.
Yeah,
I have to watch it.
I'll definitely have to watch that one too.
I think it's because I wasn't a mod as I had instructed you
or invited.
To make me
I don't think we even got even invited.
Did
we get invited?
Okay, I haven't actually had an episode yet. My first episode is next Saturday.
Oh, so you still got time to correct that mistake,
bro.
Yeah.
She's got a mod. It's me, bro. It's all
No.
I just announced my lovely mod. Her name is Rose, and she's a lovely member.
I'm gonna love working with Rose. It's gonna be awesome.
If I go there and I see him modded up, I'm leaving immediately. I'm just telling you right now. If I go there and see him there gloating, I'm walking away.
Before this gets out of hand, because this usually goes on for about an hour after the show, so I'll just do Pete. Another fantastic week. It's fantastic to have you on every week and giving us your takes so people know where they can find you, what you'll be up to, and then we'll get everyone out of here.
Yeah, hopefully we can catch up and actually game a little bit more this week, Risk. I know you're not playing Diablo much, but hey, man, Halo Season 4 Infection.
True, yeah.
Dutch, thank you for joining us, man. 3 a.m. You're a fucking superstar, brother. I actually linked Dutch's channel above in the chat, so please click on that. Please subscribe. Great content there. Cutie, all the very best luck for Confessions of a Gamer Girl. I really sincerely mean that. Umbra, your fix needs a lot of work, bro. Invite me back. I'll do my best.
He's just trying to butter you up to become a mod, Cutie. Don't you dare fall for it.
No,
And
I
chat, you
only
guys
I
are
can only
awesome
get
today.
butted up with trips to Japan, Pete.
And chat, you guys are absolutely awesome today. I don't know if you heard me like just burst out into laughter more than once, and that was all because of you guys. So thank you very much for that.
Absolutely, chat. You guys have been absolutely fire. And me, I'm hoping to get stuck into that Aliens game, Dark Descent. I think it's going to be good. ACG said it was okay. So I'll definitely capture some footage of that this week. I've got some changes coming up later in the week for my work life. So I think every show is going to be back at home. And I'll talk to you guys after the show about that. But thank you for coming, everyone. You guys are absolutely amazing. Wandering Dutch, you're a legend. Infinite, your show doesn't need work. And we'll see you all next week.
Yeah.
Peace and love.
Yeah.